Naruto's Earth Grudge Fear Chapter 1. Naruto was sitting in the old man's office once again. He usually came here when he was bored or lonely, as he didn't have any friends, and some of villagers would look at his with looks that resembled fear. He didn't know why some of the villagers were scared of him. He didn't do anything scary in his opinion, and he was always polite. The people at the ramen stand were kind, and a good number of people were kind to him, but there were always that one person who looked at him like he might attack at any second. Naruto came to the old man because he wanted someone to play with him. The other kids always played some weird games like hide and seek, duck duck goose, and a few others that Naruto thought were pointless. He just could not understand what they thought was so fun about such silly games. But then again, Naruto knew he was different because all he wanted to do was learn how to be a real ninja. But all the old man would let him practice was Bukijutsu, Fuinjutsu, and the Academy Taijutsu. When Naruto got to the old man's office, he was greeted by the man's secretary. She was a kind older woman whose hair was starting to gray, but her eyes were still that sparkling green that spoke of mischief. She usually played with him when she had the time. She was one of the only people Naruto truly acted like a kid his age around. But today she had errands to run and told him the Hokage would be back in a few minutes, so he should just wait in his office. Naruto was 8 years old, with shiny sun blonde hair that stuck out in every direction, making his head look like the sun. He had bright crystal blue eyes that seemed to sparkle when he was excited. He was slightly tan, with 3 faint lines on each side of his face. He wore a dark blue pair of cargo pants, black ninja sandals, and a black t-shirt, which had the symbol of his clan on the back. The symbol was a circle filled in by a red swirl inside of it, which kind of reminded Naruto of the 9-tailed fox's tails he had seen in pictures. Naruto was the last known member of the illustrious Uzumaki clan, and for that he was allowed to stay in the Uzumaki clan compound. Naruto usually waited for the old man to come back, but today he was just too excited. He would be starting learning how to use jutsu and start real ninja training today, although he would be teaching himself from the scrolls in his clan compound, but still he was very excited. He came to the old man to ask for advice on what he should train in first so he would not make a mistake, but since the old man was not around, Naruto decided to take a look around. The old man's office was filled with scrolls, paperwork, and had a large desk in the center of room. On the wall were 4 faces. The one on the far right was the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Minato was famed for 4 things. The first thing was the invention of the Rasengan, the panicle of chakra control and shape manipulation. The second was his use of the Flying Thunder God technique, which let his travel at unheard of speeds, but was limited by the number of kunai with a special seal he invented, and where those kunai were at the time. The third thing was that he destroyed a large portion of Iwa's military force all by himself, which was probably the reason he was made Hokage over the other worthy candidates. The last great thing he did was the defeat of the Kyuubi Kitsune, but it was also the reason he died. The second face to the far right was the old man, Sarutobi Hiruzen, the 3rd Hokage, aka the Old Man. The Old Man is the longest-running Kage to ever hold the title of Kage. He is said to have mastered every jutsu in the village, except the ones that require a bloodline to use, or a secret technique that the clans would not let him learn. The picture next to the 3rd Hokage was the 2nd Hokage. He was the Naidame Tobarama Senju. He was responsible for establishing Konoha's organizational system. He established various organizations such as the Academy, the ANBU, the Chunin exams, and the Konoha Military Police Force, which was run by the Uchiha clan. He died trying to negotiate a peace treaty with Kumo, but was attacked by the legendary Gold and Silver Brothers, which eventually lead to Tobarama's demise. And because of the incident, Kumo and Konoha have been at each other's throats ever since. He was also the one who invented the jutsu the 4th Hokage became famous for, the Flying Thunder God technique. Then there was the Shodai Hokage. He was responsible for the creation of the hidden villages, bringing together the clans, bringing a more stable peace amongst the elemental nations, and was the only man in history able to tame/defeat all 9 of the legendary Biju. He was the only person to be born naturally with the wood release bloodline, which he used to achieve these feats. Sometimes Naruto really wished he had such an awesome ability, but was determined to be great no matter what. As Naruto was searching through the old man's office looking to find something interesting, his foot got caught on the rung, causing his to fall face first into the wall. This caused the picture of the first Hokage to rattle and fell down, but luckily Naruto had fast reflexes and caught it before it could fall to the ground and become damaged. Ow wow! How am I going to be a great ninja if I am tripping over rugs, muttered Naruto. As he stood up to put the picture back on the wall, he noticed a small opening in the wall that had a small scroll in it. Curious, Naruto reached in and grabbed the scroll, eager to find out what was inside it. He placed the picture of the first Hokage back on the wall and returned his attention to the scroll he found. As he read the scroll, he became very interested. Apparently, a man by the name of Kakuzu had tried to assassinate the first Hokage using a Kinjutsu by the name of Earth Grudge Fear. It talked about how the man could create powerful black treads from his body and manipulate them to do all kinds of incredible things. It said he could replace his organs with someone else's to keep himself alive and healthy. It gave him the ability to use all 5 of the elements. It increased his overall abilities and bettered his healing abilities. Naruto thought this jutsu was amazing, not understanding how dangerous Kinjutsu were, and decided that he wanted it. Naruto removed the note that the Shodai had left so he could read the rest of the scroll. It said to gain the ability to use the Earth Grudge Fear, one must place their dominate hand over the seal matrix that was positioned at the center of the storage seal and push chakra into his dominate hand before placing his hand on the seal. It had a little caption at the bottom about how the Earth Grudge Fear was a deadly technique, but was potentially lethal to the one trying to obtain it, as the threads could kill the one trying to gain its powers. Of course, Naruto, being the excited 8-year-old that he was, disregarded the warning and started to channel his chakra into his right hand. They had unlocked their chakra the first day of class last week and were taught the basics on how to channel it. As soon as Naruto was sure he had done everything correct, he slammed his right hand on the seal, and for a split second thought nothing was going to happen. That was when thousands of black hair, thin string-like things, shot out of the seal and started to pierce Naruto's skin. Naruto freaked out and started shouting, but no matter what he did, more of the black strings rushed into his body. He could feel them wiggling around inside his body as they were everywhere. He could feel them moving to his head, his fingers, and his legs, everywhere. He continued to scream for help and try and get away from the threads, but they just kept coming. An ANBU ninja with a crane mask rushed in and saw what was happening. He was not like some of the villagers who feared the boy and knew he was a good kid from watching him during some of his shifts. He instantly went to cut at the strings, but when he did cut through them, they just reconnected themselves, but now the strings were attacking him to keep him away from Naruto. After 5 minutes of the strings were gone, but if you looked closely enough you could still see them moving under the boy's skin. Acting fast, the crane-masked ANBU grabbed Naruto and rushed him to the hospital, where they took him and started to try and help him. After the nurses had taken the boy away, the ANBU member instantly body flickered to where the Hokage was. 4 hours later. "Huff, what hit me?" asked Naruto, as he tried to sit up, only to be pushed back down by an even wrinkle Hokage. He looked like he was 10 years older, but he had a look of happiness in his eyes that told Naruto that he was happy to see him. "Geez, old man, you look like hell," laughed Naruto at the irony of that statement. The Hokage did not miss it as well as he chuckled good-naturedly. After the friendly chuckle, his eye turned serious, and Naruto knew he was in trouble. "Naruto, what happened in my office while I was away? Where did you get that scroll and why did you use it knowing it was a Kinjutsu?" asked the Hokage in no-nonsense kind of voice. "Well, I was in your office waiting for you to ask if you would give me some pointers so I would know where to start my ninja training, but you were not there, and your secretary had to leave, so I decided to wait in your office. I was so excited that I couldn't sit still, so I started to look around your office, but made sure not to touch anything that could be important like you said. While I was looking around, I tripped on your rug and went face first into the wall right underneath the Shodai's picture. I guess the impact caused it to fall, but I was able to catch it. When I went to put it back on the wall, I saw that that scroll was there and started to read through it. It sounded like a really cool ability, and I wanted to be the best ninja in the village, so I decided to use it. I didn't realize it would be so painful or dangerous, so I am glad I was able to get away before it finished," spoke Naruto as he explained what had happened. The Hokage had a surprised look on his face, which Naruto figured was because there was a scroll in his office that not even he knew about. "I think you were misunderstood what had happened to you, Naruto-kun. You see, you did activate the Kinjutsu, and once a Kinjutsu starts it is almost impossible to stop. You were already too far in the process of adapting to that Kinjutsu to stop, so now you are probably the only person alive who can use the Earth Grudge Fear Kinjutsu. Congratulations, Naruto, spoke the Hokage with a twinkle in his eye. You mean it really worked? Shouted Naruto, was a look of pure excitement on his face. Yes, but I was reading up on the Earth Grudge Fear, and I discovered it will be a while before you can start to use it without harming yourself. You will need to greatly increase your chakra control, which will not be easy for you, because you already have such a large amount of chakra for your age. It is good that you're starting to learn chakra control early, as it would be hell for you if you waited till you were older. I want you to rest for today, and tomorrow you can leave. If you are good, I will give you a couple of scrolls on chakra control exercises, so that you can start your training tomorrow. For now, I want your body to get acclimated to having those strange threads living inside of you, spoke the Hokage, as he stood up and walked out of the room. Oh, and by the way, I am giving you the scroll that contains the Earth Grudge Fear, but you have to promise me you will not let anyone else use it until you are old enough to make those kinds of decisions, spoke the Hokage. He tossed Naruto the scroll that contained the Earth Grudge Fear and walked out of the room. Naruto just smiled at the old man and waved as he left. He kept looking at the scroll, as he opened and closed his hand around it with a smile on his face. He could already tell he was a little bit stronger, and would only keep getting stronger from here on out. His dream of becoming Hokage and bring fame and fortune to the Uzumaki clan was that much closer to being realized. The next day, Naruto was released from the hospital, and as soon as they let him get out of the wheelchair, he rocketed off towards the old man's office. Took about 10 minutes, but Naruto had plenty of stamina to burn and was easily able to make it to the old man's office in half that time. As he walked up to the secretary to ask if the old man was in, she scooped him up into a hug and told him how worried she was. Took 10 more minutes, but he was finally able to convince her that he was fine. Normally, he would have been aggravated that someone was keeping him from his training, but he was far too happy that someone cared enough to shed tears for him. So he put up a smile and comforted her until she was better. After that little moment, she led him into the Hokage's office, where he was stamping a bunch of papers with a look that said he wanted to burn all of it to ashes. "Hey old man, how it hanging?" asked Naruto, as he sat across from the old man with barely restrained enthusiasm. The Hokage saw this and was actually happy for a distraction from his paperwork. "Nothing that a trained monkey couldn't do," grumbled the old man, as he sat back in his chair. "So I am guessing you are here to get the scroll I filled with chakra control exercises?" asked the Hokage with a smirk. "Yes, I cannot wait to start training, so that I can be an awesome ninja like you," spoke Naruto. He knew from watching some of the old man's meeting that compliments could get you anywhere. The old man seemed to realize this if the smirk he was currently wearing was any kind of giveaway. "Okay, but I want you to promise me that you will not try and use the Earth Grudge Fear until you have at least mastered water walking," spoke the old man, as he held the scroll just out of Naruto's reach. Naruto grumbled about the stipulation, but finally conceded. "All right, old man, you got a deal. Now give me the scroll, I am dying over here," shouted Naruto. The Hokage laughed at his plight, but tossed Naruto the scroll anyways. As soon as the scroll made contact with Naruto's hands, he and the scroll disappeared. If the Hokage didn't know any better, he would have figured Naruto had just used the Flying Thunder God technique to leave his office. With Naruto was running at the speed of a low chunin towards his favorite training spot. Naruto had been teaching himself how to throw kunai, shuriken, and sunban since he was 6 years old by using his clan scrolls. It was slow at first, but it didn't take him long to figure it out. After that, he just needed to get used to it. Now though, Naruto would be starting to learn something to do with chakra, and he was very excited. When Naruto finally got to his secret training ground, he sat in the center of it. It was perfect in Naruto's opinion. There were thick trees that formed a semicircle around a small clearing covered by soft green grass and white clover flowers. It was connected to a good-sized pond that was also surrounded by thick trees. Naruto figured he was the only person who knew of this place, and he was plenty fine with that. He opened up the scroll the old man gave him and began to read. There were a couple of chakra control techniques. There was how to activate your chakra, then the leaf balancing exercise, followed by tree walking, which was the exercise before water walking, and finally kunai spinning before you get into some seriously crazy stuff. Naruto rolled up the scroll and placed it on the ground beside a tree. He hadn't mastered the leaf floating exercise at school yet, which aggravated him because he really wanted to learn how to walk up trees. But the old man's lessons rang in his head about how the basics were very important, and that if you skip steps it is bound to haunt you in the future. With those things in mind, he reluctantly decided to master the leaf balancing exercise first. He picked up a leaf that had recently fallen and placed it on his head while using his chakra to make it stick. Naruto was told that the longer he could hold it there the better, and after the 10-minute marker you were considered adequate at it. Naruto wanted to be the best, so he figured he would need great chakra control. His mission was to be able to keep the leaf on his head for at least 1 whole hour. For the next 2 weeks, Naruto practiced the leaf balancing exercise constantly. He would run for an hour a day, do some light exercises, read about some basic seals at his compound for a while, and followed by an hour of Bukijutsu weapon techniques practice. Naruto made sure his skills with the kunai, shuriken, senbon, and the katana did not get rusty as he practiced mastering his chakra control. After Naruto was successfully able to keep the leaf connected to his head for a solid hour, he moved on to the next technique, tree walking. It was much more difficult than the leaf balancing technique because he not only had to channel chakra to the bottom of his feet, which was the hardest place in the human body to channel chakra, but also had to make sure that he sent the appropriate amount of chakra so that he did not fall off of the tree. It took about the same amount of time to perfect the tree walking technique as it did the leaf floating technique, but another 2 additional weeks to master tree walking while throwing kunai. Naruto figured that combining chakra control and Bukijutsu training together could only help in the long run. He fell out of the trees while practicing tree combat, as he called it, more times than he could count, but thanks to his lightning fast reflexes was always able to catch himself before he came to any serious damage. When he finally believed he was ready to move up to the next level, Naruto went to his own private pond. It was a good-sized and very deep. Naruto wondered how many people caught colds from practicing this, but knew he wouldn't since he had never been sick before. It only took a week to learn the water walking technique, but an additional 2 to be able to jump up and down on the water without falling through. Then there was the fact that he would try and mix in Bukijutsu by throwing kunai at targets set up around the lake. Some of the targets were in plain view, while others were only barely sticking out. Naruto was proud of himself for how far he had come. Okay, I kept my end of the deal. Now I can finally start practicing using my earth grudge fear, thought Naruto, as he sat down in a meditative position. He slowly started to feel out his chakra, and then used it to connect to the countless threads that were now a part of his body. He could already control the threads somewhat when he first got them, but now he could literally will them to do his bidding. At first he just got used to moving them and having 1 or 2 threads poke out of his skin. It was weird watching it, but Naruto also thought it was cool. He started to twist the threads into a thin rope, willed it to pull back, and then willed it once more to slash at the tree in front of him. He was amazed at how deep the slash mark made. Oh yes, totally worth the pain for getting such an amazing power, spoke Naruto, as he continued to training how to manipulate the black threads. For nearly 2 years Naruto continued to train himself, as well as to push himself to the limits. He was already really skilled at making seals, and could not wait to learn how to use the seals his family made for the lord of the Hozukujo castle to keep the prisoners in line. It was too bad that his natural affinity was for wind and not fire, so he knew he would have to wait to learn how to use them. He practiced multiple forms of Bukijutsu every day so that his skills would always stay sharp. So far he could honestly say he was the best at throwing weapons in his entire school, even better than the chunin that worked there. He always carried a light brown wood handle, wood sheath, and no guard wakizashi on his belt behind his back. He was very skilled using it, but was too short to use a full-size katana, so he settled for something that would work almost as good until he was big enough to use a full-size katana. He used an Uzumaki clan Kinjutsu style that was unique to the Uzumaki clan. The style was called the Dance of the Wind Goddess, as it was fast, graceful, precise, and looked like a deadly dance. A year ago he learned that he had a wind release affinity, which was odd since it was such a rare affinity to have for some living in Fire Country. But he attributed that to the fact that his mother hadn't been born in Fire Country but in Yuzushigakure. Naruto knew that when he started doing real missions, he would be able to collect the hearts from fallen ninja and in turn their elemental affinities. He was absolutely giddy thinking about mastering all 5 elements. It only took 1 year to truly master his wind release, and he used a few months to master a few useful wind techniques. The most useful wind technique that he learned was the Flying Swallow technique, which increased all of his Bukijutsu skills, as well as his Earth Grudge Fear attacks. After searching through the Uzumaki clan library, Naruto found a scroll depicting a taijutsu style that the Lord of Hozukujo Castle had sent them as a thank you present for making the heavenly prison techniques. It was called Grass Shadow style, and from what Naruto read, it was really good. It used fast compact attacks, quick agile reversals/locks, and a powerful defensive stance. Naruto has spent the last year practicing it, and he could honestly say he was pretty good. But without experience or anyone to practice with, he could only get so good. He didn't have any luck performing Genjutsu. He asked the old man Hokage about that, and he explained that even though he had good chakra control for someone with Naruto's chakra reserve, but for him to be able to use even intermediate-level Genjutsu, Naruto would have to have nearly perfect chakra control. Naruto was depressed when he heard that, but settled for mastering the Genjutsu release technique to make sure he did not fall prey to a master Genjutsu user. He did have some ideas on how to get around his handicap, but that would have to wait till later. Still, without someone to actually put a Genjutsu on Naruto, all of his training was more theoretical than anything else. Now Naruto was off to the academy for his final year at the academy. He didn't see the point in going, as it was all a bunch of BS in his opinion, but that would change when he became the 5th Fire Shadow. He knew the old man was slowly dying inside, metaphorically speaking, having to deal with all the woes of the people, the power-hungry council, the giant stacks of paperwork, and the whiny clan heads. He knew the old man only had about another 6 more years in him before he would not be able to take it, which was perfect for him, as it would give him time to get powerful, renowned, and experience. He would be the 5th Fire Shadow at 15, youngest ever, and prove himself as the greatest Kage ever, thus elevating the Uzumaki clan in the eyes of the world. He would honor his ancestors' sacrifice in the Second Shinobi War by becoming the bane of the countries that destroyed his ancestral home. The only problem Naruto was having was the old man would not let him take the heart of a prisoner with a fire release. He wanted to try out the organ assimilation technique of the Earth Grudge Fear, but the old man had been putting him out. He wanted a fire release heart so that he would be able to use fire release techniques to their fullest, but the old man kept dodging the subject. Well, not today. He was about to march in there and tell the Hokage what's what. "Hello, Naruto-kun, how are you today?" asked the Hokage's assistant in her ever-friendly manner. Naruto really liked her. She was almost like a sister trying to make up for lost time, or a very loving aunt. "Hello, I am here to see the old man. Is he in today?" asked Naruto. He always showed respect, as it would make becoming Hokage easier if people liked him. But when he spoke to her, his words were softer, more genuine, and she just knew he meant all of the kind things he said to her. "I am sorry, Naruto-kun, but the Hokage is down in torture and interrogation today. A spy was caught, and it seems he just won't crack. I heard that neither Anko nor Ibiki could get him to crack," spoke the secretary. That shocked Naruto. He had heard of the masterful skill Ibiki had with interrogation prisoners, and Anko Mitarashi was not far behind him in terms of skill, although he had heard her methods were far more sadistic. "Okay, well, I need to talk to him, so even if he was peeping like he said his student did, I would still go talk to him," spoke Naruto with confidence. "Oh, you're really pumped up today, aren't you? Going to try and corner the Hokage again and make him let you take one of the prisoner's hearts for you collection," laughed the secretary. She was disturbed at first when he explained to her all that his Kinjutsu could do, but over time she got over her shock, and after seeing it in action she could see how practical it was. She found it funny that every day he would come here to argue with the Hokage only to be bribed with something else, like a new jutsu or something else. She remembered when he mastered his wind release, the Hokage gave him an B-ranked wind release jutsu. He was so excited he completely forgot why he was there and rushed off to learn how to use it. She didn't see him for a whole week, which depressed her. But when he did finally come back, he had swag in his step, and she just knew he had mastered it. "Yeep, and he won't get away from me this time," shouted Naruto as he ran towards the TNI building. 20 minutes later, Naruto was walking through the TNI building getting funny looks from the ninja with the animal masks, but they didn't say anything to him. After a few minutes, Naruto was directed to a room that had 4 people in it. The first person was the third Hokage with a serious look on his face. The second was a man with a bandana on his head, big black trench coat on, and scars all over his face. The third person in the room was an attractive woman with a mesh bodysuit on, thick gray trench coat, an orange skirt with combat boots on. She had a pineapple-shaped hairstyle and the color of her hair was a bright purple color. The last guy was tied to a chair and looked worse for wear. He was a dark-skinned man, which meant he was probably from Kumo, with fresh cuts on his body, was soaked to the bone, and looked like he had been starved here recently. "Hey old man, I need to talk to you," shouted Naruto with a grin on his face. Everybody, including the beaten to hell and back Kumo ninja, looked at him in shock. "Naruto-kun, what are you doing here?" demanded the Hokage, already dreading what he was about to say. "You have been avoiding my request, so don't think hiding down here with our foreign buddies is going to hide you from me. As you know, I am a natural-born tracker," grinned Naruto. "Naruto, please let's not do this now," spoke the Hokage, looking like he was hoping to avoid this conversation. "Nope. You promised that you would let me use my Kinjutsu as soon as I mastered water walking, but you have been avoiding letting me use that ability," spoke Naruto as he crossed his arms in front of his body. "Sai, okay Naruto, you can use it on this guy just as soon as we get all the information out of him as we can," spoke the Hokage with a tired look on his face. "Is that all? Why didn't you say so? I'll have this idiot singing in no time," spoke Naruto. Anko looked like she was about to say something snappy, but stopped when she saw thin black threads starting to come out of the kid's skin. The threads traveled to the struggling Kumo ninja, but he stopped struggling as soon as the threads entered his brain. Naruto had a theory that he could use the Earth Grudge Sphere to manipulate the brain if he did it right. After a few minutes, he found where his brain stored the memories, and instantly Naruto started to see the things that this guy had seen. He found who he was, that he had the Scorch Release bloodline, which was a combination of wind and fire, and why he was spying on Konoha. He was here to scout out the Hyuga clan compound. Kumo is planning on kidnapping one of the unmarked Hyuga children while we signed a peace treaty with them. This would make it impossible to go to war with them, get the unmarked Hyuga back, and basically protect Kumo from any possible repercussions for their actions, spoke Naruto, as the black threads started to retract back into his skin. Everyone was gasping at what Naruto had just said. Ibiki was amazed at the potential the Earth Grudge Sphere had with interrogation, as was Anko, but they were all surprised at what Kumo was planning on doing. Before anyone could react, Naruto shot out many of the dark threads that inhabited his body into the Kumo ninja's chest, and then using the strings removed the man's heart. He used the black threads to open a hole in his chest to allow the new heart to enter, and used those same black threads to stick himself back up. Thanks to his healing capabilities, Naruto healed without even the faintest of scars. Looking back at the adults who had looks of shock on their faces, Naruto said, "Well, I got what I wanted, so I will catch you later, old man. Scarface, pineapple head." After saying his goodbyes, Naruto ran off to test out his now natural fire release affinity. "Well, that was surprising," spoke Ibiki, as he watched the kid run away with a smile on his face like he just won the lottery. "Very," spoke the Hokage, as he walked off contemplating how he was going to make sure Kumo didn't get an unmarked Hyuga child. "I think I am in love," spoke a very stunned Anko, which promptly made the Hokage and Ibiki do a double take. "Oh, poor Naruto-kun/Gaki. You have a very deadly snake after you, so you better watch out," thought Ibiki and the Hokage, as they felt sorry for the young blonde. Naruto's Earth Grudge Sphere Chapter 2. When Naruto finally made it back to his secret training ground, he started thinking about the Kumo ninja he had killed. It was his first kill, and although he put on a tough face to make sure the Hokage did not use it as an excuse for Naruto not use his Kinjutsu, he was still in shock. He was barely able to keep a straight face while leaving, but he was not able to hear as he was replaying everything in his repeatedly. Naruto quickly shook his head to remove the depressing thought that were starting to plague his mind. Get a hold of yourself, Naruto. The man was trying to kidnap a child to use as a breeding factory. He deserved to die, and I refuse to feel bad about killing him, spoke Naruto as he started doing his before training stretches. After he was done, he stood up and started thinking about everything that the Kumo ninja had known. He knew how to use wind and fire release and their elemental training, so furthering learning fire release should not take nearly as long as mastering wind release, since I already have experience mastering fire release thanks to the memories of that Kumo nin. He knew a great Kumo Kinjutsu style which I should probably learn as it would help my Kinjutsu, and he knew an interesting Kumo Taijutsu style which I should learn. He had no skill in Fuinjutsu, which is not surprising, but he did know a little Genjutsu and some interesting stealth skills that I should practice. The two things that interest me the most are the Kinjutsu that he knew and his Scorch release. I wonder if I would be able to use the Scorch release bloodline now that I have his heart. I need to learn the Shadow Clone technique as it will greatly increase my training, but using them will be difficult. I can't have them doing a whole bunch of tasks, or else all the information they send back will be all muddled and I won't learn a thing. I will still need to train physically as the clones don't seem to be able to help me in that field. Okay, first master the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and then master the rest, spoke Naruto as he started to practice the Shadow Clone Jutsu. It was not very hard, which confused Naruto, but apparently it did not require almost any chakra control, just lots of chakra. Mass Shadow Clone Jutsu, shouted Naruto as he placed his finger in a cross sign that was used for making the shadow clones. It was an odd sign since it was not one of the 12 standard hand seals. After Naruto used the Shadow Clone Jutsu, 200 clones popped into existence that looked exactly like Naruto. They just looked at him like they were expecting him to tell them what to do. Naruto was thankful for that, as he didn't want them all to be asking questions and causing discord while he tried to use them to train. Hey just shut up, shouted Naruto as he looked out at the sea of clones. He felt kind of stupid shouting at himself this way, but it seemed to be the only way to communicate with them. What do you want, boss? Shouted one of them as they looked at Naruto with unblinking eyes. It kind of creeped Naruto out, but he kept his mouth shut, not wanting them to riot or something. We need training, and this is the best way I know of, spoke Naruto as he scratched the back of his head. Maybe he made too many of them. He certainly didn't want brain damage from the backlash of too many memories entering him brain too quickly. So what do you want us to do? Shouted another clone. Naruto scratched his chin and thought for a bit. He could always just have them practice a skill he had already worked on, such as Kinjutsu or something, but right now he wanted to try something new. We are going to start learning fire release. We absorbed that Kumo ninja's heart and he had a fire and wind affinity. I already have a wind release affinity and I already know how to use it, so learning a bunch of jutsu would be pointless. Besides, I am interested in combination jutsu, spoke Naruto as he pulled out a scroll and looked at it. It was on combination jutsu, something that teams didn't even really practice that often, and clenched it firmly. All right, shouted the clones, jumping up and down. Naruto figured they would be happy learning ninjutsu since he himself loved to learn it, but practicing elemental manipulation was different. All right, everyone, find a leaf and hold it between your thumb and index finger. After that, try and convert your chakra into fire chakra. The idea is to cause a small hole to form in the center of the leaf and slowly burn outwards. We will be ready to move on to the next portion of Fire Master after that, spoke Naruto as he started running. The clones knew he was going to go and improve his endurance by running until he dropped, so they went about their task of learning and mastering how to change their chakra into fire-based chakra. It wasn't as easy as they had first assumed it would be. More than half of them cut the leaves that they were holding in half by accidentally converting their chakra into wind chakra. Even after they stopped doing that, progress was slow. They started to get aggravated until one of them was able to burn a small hole in the center of his leaf, right before he popped out of existence. This caused the memories to travel to the rest of them and they learned what he had. After that, it was on to spreading the fire chakra through the leaf. It took the clones an entire week to finish mastering the exercise, and they were beginning to hate fire release. Damn guys, that was fast, spoke Naruto as he walked up to the group of clones. He wasn't surprised when they gave him the evil eyes. They hadn't been exactly quite in their hatred in learning how to learn fire release. Naruto just thought they were a bunch of babies because he spent way longer trying to master the first step of wind release than they had fire release, unless you add up all the time it took for them to learn fire release, because then it would be exactly the same. "That was awful," shouted one of the clones. "Ah, shut up, you bunch of babies. We are going to finish mastering fire release," spoke Naruto, eyeing them with his own evil eye. They back off instantly. "Alright, the next and last step in mastering fire release is to boil a small body of water. Luckily, there are places in Konoha for this since there are so many people here who have a fire release," spoke Naruto with a smile on his face. They all went to complain, but Naruto dismissed them before they could. After an hour of running, Naruto came to a large wooden building in the forest that had a plaque that said, "Mastering the Flame." Naruto figured it was the right place to be, so he entered it and was surprised by what he saw. The building had that old-school wooden wall look, thick stone floors, low-lit room with small burning torches, and not a soul in sight. In the center of the room was a giant cauldron with a held up about a foot off the ground. "Alright, let's do this," spoke Naruto as he made 50 shadow clones. They all surrounded the cauldron and started to channel fire chakra, while another clone stood on top of the cauldron and watched to see if it would start boiling. Took a solid month to complete this exercise. Naruto thought it was a bit flawed himself. Even if they did create the correct temperature to boil water, it would still take time for the water to boil. Naruto suspected this was done on purpose. If the water had boiled instantly when Naruto's chakra had reached the correct temperature, then he would have stopped. Since it didn't boil instantly, Naruto continued to train and learned to channel fire chakra faster and hotter, causing the water to boil faster. Naruto suspected this was idea of the Hokage to strengthen Konoha's ninja without them even knowing. He was a clever old man. "Alright, you guys, even though you all complained like little babies, I think we did really good. So now as a reward we will be learning a few fire-style jutsu," spoke Naruto, instantly become the Shadow Clone's best friend again. "The Hozukujo family has provided us with plenty of unique and useful jutsu, so those are the ones we are going to learn." One again, all of the clones cheered, and soon they got to work. They spent the next month and 3 weeks learning multiple jutsu. It was fun and the clones seemed to love it, but Naruto knew they couldn't waste all of their time just learning elemental jutsu, so one day he called them all back to him to break the bad news. "Alright guys, it was fun and all, but it is about time we get back to learning something else," spoke Naruto right before the groans started to pop up. Naruto ignored them and persevered. "I will be making 100 clones. The objective is for to fight one another and learn to fight using only the taijutsu style that I assign you, or the Kinjutsu style, nothing else." Naruto made a few more clones to fill in the order and had one group of 50 clones stand on one side of the field while he made the others stand on the other side of the field. "Alright, I want that side to use the Dancing Wind Goddess Kinjutsu style, while I want that side to use the Kumo Ninja's Kinjutsu style called the Head Hunter style. You will fight until only one group is left," spoke Naruto, but once again they started to complain. "Hey, they already know how to use their Kinjutsu style and we don't. Why don't we get to train before doing this crap?" shouted one of the clones on the Kumo Ninja style side. Naruto could only sigh and rub his head. "They may have more practice with their style, but you guys have years of experience using yours. You just have to get into the rhythm of using it," shouted Naruto right before he snapped his finger and all of the shadow clones charged each other. It greatly helped Naruto's headache seeing the pain in the ass clones killing one another. The first group didn't learn much at all, other than everything was a blade-filled chaos, but the second group had the memories of the first and were more experienced fighting in large-scale battles. That didn't mean they did much better though. The first group dominated the second with all the practice they had at using their style, but slowly the second group got more used to fighting with that particular style. After about a month, Naruto figured he was used to using both styles for the clones to quit killing themselves. Thank goodness," shouted one clone as he fell to his knees with tears rolling down his face. "What are you so happy about? The only thing that is going to change is now you're going to use taijutsu instead of Kinjutsu," spoke Naruto with a grin. These clones had been far too much of a pain in the ass and he wasn't ready for the suffering to end. "No," shouted one of the clones right before another killed him with the grass shadow style emit destroy palm technique. Naruto could only smile and nod his head to the clone that had done it. That lasted a good 2 months straight. While the clones were good at using their particular taijutsu style, they had no experience being attacked where they could not see, being attacked by more than one enemy, or actually fighting against a real enemy. This made for great entertainment for Naruto when he could spare the time from his physical training. Naruto wasn't idle by any means. He had been working out, stretching, improving his reflexes, and practicing Fuinjutsu constantly. Since Fuinjutsu was something that you didn't actually practice all that much, just read and learned, it was not practical to use a shadow clone to learn it. All Naruto would get would be jumbled facts that he would have no idea what meant what. That didn't mean that Naruto was a beginner when it came to Fuinjutsu. He was naturally gifted in the area and had been reading his clan's scrolls since he was a little kid. Like all Uzumaki, he had wonderful hand-eye coordination, which also made them good painters and artisans. His skills in the area grew every year, and though he couldn't say he was this for anything else, he was very close to being a basic Fuinjutsu master. He had invented his own seal and had an idea for 2 other seals. The first seal that Naruto invented was called the Chakra Storage and Replenishing Seal. It was a seal that you store your chakra into, and when you started to run low like in battle, you could pull the chakra you saved up in the seal to use. It was great for everyone, especially people with low chakra reserves, as they could save up chakra while in the village and use it when on missions if the need arises. Naruto had already applied this seal to his left shoulder. He was planning on marketing these seals by placing them on people and then placing a seal hiding seal on top of it. The second seal Naruto was working on was called the Medic Seal. It was a seal that you could store chakra inside of, like the Chakra Storage and Replenishing Seal, but instead of getting back regular chakra like you would get from the first seal, the Medic Seal converts the chakra sealed inside of it into medical chakra, so if you were ever hurt, it would inject the medical chakra into your body to heal you. It was still a work in progress, as it would not save you from fatal injuries, but it will most defiantly slow down how fast you die, giving the bearer a chance to find a medic nin that could save you. The Medic Seal would be situated on his right shoulder when he finished making it. The third seal was called the Reflection Seal. It was a seal that allowed you to absorb and seal a jutsu that was being hurled at you into it, kind of like the Chakra Storage and Replenishing Seal. Then you could unseal it and send it back at whoever it was that used it on you, or whoever you wanted to send it at really. It was very versatile, as it could be placed on a weapon, some armor, a hand, or any body part, or even on the ground if you wanted to. It was very useful, but Naruto never told anyone about these seals, as many people would have asked him to apply it to them. This seal would be applied to his palms once he had finished working out a few bugs. He also had an idea of, instead of releasing the technique back at your opponents, you could simply absorb the chakra from the jutsu and add it to your own reserves. Naruto ran to the edge of a lake to start the next section of his training. He quickly made a clone who instantly got to work writing down drawing markings all over his body that would be used for the Restriction Seal, which was another seal he had invented. After an hour, the clone was done, and it then slammed its palm on Naruto's chest. Instantly, all of the lines on Naruto's body seemed to be sucked into the clone's palm. When the clone removed its hand, there was the character for the number 0 on Naruto's chest, representing that there was not restriction to Naruto's body at the moment. After the clone got finished applying the Restriction Seal, it puffed out of existence and Naruto started pushing chakra into the Restriction Seal. The character went from 0 to 5. Instantly, Naruto could feel the strain of the seal, making it much harder for Naruto to do anything. He slowly started to run around the lake at a slow, subdued pace. It was hard for Naruto to even breathe with such stress on his body, but he knew it was necessary for him to reach his dreams of becoming Hokage. After 5 hours of constant running, Naruto fell to the ground, his muscles burning like they were on fire. The only relief he had was the cool breeze that passed over him. When he got back to the clones, they looked at him with expecting faces. Naruto was always annoyed by them. They really knew how to make you feel like a jerk, even though you did nothing but make them line up on 2 sides of a battlefield and kill one another. "You guys can release yourselves. I am going home to get some shut-eye," spoke Naruto as he ran off towards his clan compound for some much-deserved rest. "What should we do?" asked one of the clones to another clone. "I don't know, but I am not ready to disappear," spoke another as he crossed his arms. "Hey, how about we practice some more fire release jutsu?" asked another clone. Instantly, the clones went wild. The next day, When Naruto ran off towards his personal training ground, he felt something weird, like something amazing was going to happen today. He wasn't disappointed when he landed in front of a large group of his clones that looked beaten up and tired, but still existed. "What are you guys doing?" asked Naruto, looking around the clearing. There wasn't any grass left and there were countless burn marks. "Damn clones spent all night practicing fire release techniques," thought Naruto with annoyance. "Watch this, boss," shouted the clone as he started going through hand seals. When he was done, he called out "Scorch release." "Incinerating flare technique," shouted the clone. Instantly, a giant ball of fire formed over the clone's head and it looked like a miniature sun. Naruto instantly knew that the clone used the bloodline of that Kumonin, but was still amazed that it could do something like that. "Wow, that is amazing. What else did you guys learn?" asked Naruto as he slowly walked towards where his clones were training. The clones all grinned and Naruto got a bad feeling. Instantly, all of them puffed out of existence and Naruto got the worst migraine he had ever had in his life. The last memory he saw was of a clone saying, "You so deserved that." Naruto was so pissed, but there wasn't much he could do. After that day, Naruto practiced mostly chakra control using his clones, and he himself would practice one of these, Kinjutsu, the Earth Grudge Fear, or his physical capabilities. He didn't like it, but he also learned some basic medical ninjutsu. Nothing serious, just enough in Naruto's opinion, since the Hokage said you needed to know what you were talking about when you were Hokage. The interesting thing that happened to Naruto was when he was all alone in his secret training ground. He had just released his clones and was continuing his physical training when a giant snake came crashing out of the forest of death. Naruto quickly created 20 shadow clones and had them surround the snake. When the snake was confused, Naruto went through a few hand seals and shouted out "Scorch release," incinerating flare technique. When the giant sun-like fireball formed overhead, Naruto threw it at the snake. The snake didn't have a chance in hell, and when the technique went off, it incinerated everything for a good 100 feet in every direction. Naruto was going to have to make a knot to self to be more controlled when using that technique. That was when that purpled-haired woman jumped out of the tree line and looked at him with surprise. "Damn. Gaki, you say hello just like I do," spoke Anko as she grinned at him. She was surprised when he didn't check her out like all the men did, but chalked it up to him being too young to truly understand what she was packing was. "So that was your snake summons," spoke Naruto. He knew about summons and about all of the ones in Konoha and who was their summoner/S. The old man had the monkey summoning contract, the weird green spandex man had the tortoises, Tsunade Senju had the slugs, although she was not in the village at the moment, Orochimaru and Anko had the snake contract, but Orochimaru was a rogue nin now, and Jiraiya the toad sannin had the toad summoning contract. "That must make her Anko. I think I have met her somewhere," thought Naruto. "Yes, I am the sexy and single Anko Mitarashi, Konoha's snake mistress," shouted the woman as she posed in a weird way. Naruto was starting to think all ninja were cracked in the head after being around ninja like Spandex Man, the perverted old Kage, and after hearing about all three of the Sannin's problems. "If you're so sexy, then why are you single? Or is it that you only think you're sexy?" asked Naruto with a smirk on his face. He saw the God-smacked look on her face and it just made him want to laugh. That was until she started to march over towards him with death written in her eyes. "Are you saying I am not sexy enough for you?" asked Anko, as she thrust her breasts in his face. Naruto would admit it only to himself, but they felt amazing against his face, but he kept his face neutral but slightly curious so that Anko here would not think she got the upper hand. "Well, you are very beautiful, but I think you would be even prettier if you wore some more normal clothes. You look half-dressed, and like you are expecting it to rain with that jacket and boots. If you wore some form-fitting ANBU pants and a Jonin vest over your fishnet undershirt, ditched the boots for some black combat boots, lost the jacket completely, and didn't have that murderous look on your face, you would definitely be the most beautiful woman in all of Fire Country," spoke Naruto. He was so thankful for those books on how to smooth talk your way out of life-threatening situations. Naruto was shocked when he saw the shocked look on Anko's face, but was even more shocked when he saw the flecks of a blush forming on her face. She quickly turned around and started speaking to him without looking him in the face. Naruto could only assume she was doing this to preserve her dignity or to try and hide her blush. "So you're saying that if I wore that instead of this, then you would think I was the most beautiful woman in Fire Country?" asked Anko, but Naruto could detect hesitance or maybe it was shyness, but he couldn't be sure. Of course no one would be able to match your beauty if you wore clothes like that, spoke Naruto with a big smile. He couldn't see it, but Anko's blush just went up a few shades. Would you say take me out on a date if I wore something like that, spoke Anko in a fake jokey voice. But Naruto was not fooled for a minute. I would love to, but only after I became a full-fledged ninja of Konohagakure. That way no one could say anything bad about you when they saw us walking together since I would be technically an adult, spoke Naruto, as he smiled at the back of Anko's head. He had butterflies in his stomach, and he remembered that the old man told him that it was a sign that he was nervous because he liked a girl and was having a hard time keeping himself in control. Then it's a date. In 2 years you will take me out for dango, spoke Anko with conviction in her voice. Naruto raised an eyebrow at her choice of food, but did not comment. She must have really loved the stuff to suggest they got there. Naruto smiled and told her it was a promise of a lifetime. After that, they started to talk about more normal things. Anko was apparently impressed by him when he got that information out of that kumonin, but even more impressed when he took the man's heart for his own. She wanted to know why he did that, so he told her that it would protect him from dying if he ever had one of his hearts destroyed, allowed him to use the man's natural-born affinity like it was his own, and also allowed him to use his elemental affinity. Anko was very surprised, but figured that was how he was able to kill her snake summons so easily. After that, Anko and Naruto met up every other day. They really enjoyed fighting each other as Naruto was very strong and used many different techniques, but Anko had her summons and years of experience, plus she was very skilled in taijutsu and ninjutsu just like Naruto. For the next 2 years Naruto trained with and without Anko. He completely mastered all of the jutsu, techniques, fighting styles, and everything else that Kumo Ninja knew. He also moved up to using a short chikudo, but the chikudo he used looked exactly like his last sword but just longer. His fuinjutsu skills continued to grow as did his knowledge. He was sure that he would be able to finish off his seals before long. Naruto decided to master poison release, since Anko would not get off of his back about it, and found it to be actually very useful. He learned that he could combine it with his wind release to spread it around, with his fire release which would turn the fire a purple color, to poison anyone that the fire burned making it much harder to cure, or with water for other uses. Hell, he could use it to poison water supplies of enemy nations or the ground they grew their crops on. Flashback to Naruto in the village. "Hey kid," came a feminine voice from behind Naruto. Naruto turned around to yell at whoever just called him a kid. But when he saw a beautiful woman with purple hair like Anko in ANBU clothing, he decided against it. This could be Anko's sister or something, and he didn't want to be attacked in the middle of the streets for yelling at her. "I don't care that you are friendly and use my name, but don't call me kid like that. I have an image in this village that I need to maintain or I will never get any respect," spoke Naruto in a calm voice. But his sharp eyes told Yugao that he was serious. "Yeah, sorry about that, but the Hokage asked me if I would test your proficiency with the sword when I had some time. If you don't mind, I would like to see what has the Hokage so giddy," spoke Yugao as she showed Naruto her own sword. "Yeah, sure. Sounds like fun," spoke Naruto showing her his own sword. Flashback ending. After that day Naruto and Yugao became close friends. She helped him improve his skills with the sword that she said were prodigious like his skills with fuinjutsu. Naruto thought she was a lot of fun and missed her and their training when she had to go on long missions outside of the village. Naruto was able to keep his own with Anko in a pure taijutsu fight now, and that was saying something because the woman was fast, extremely flexible, had amazing reflexes, and all of that combined with her taijutsu style made it nearly impossible to hit her most of the time. Naruto was able to learn some basic genjutsu, but other than that he was still hopeless at it. Naruto now wore black ANBU pants that had many pockets, a forest green t-shirt with the Uzumaki swirl on the back, but now it was a silver color. He wore a black bracelet that had a seal on it that kept all of his kunai on his left wrist, and a dark green bracelet that had a seal on it that kept all of his shuriken in it on his right wrist. Around his neck was a black necklace with a silver snake with green eyes. It was a gift from Anko, and she told him it meant a lot to her, so if he ever lost it, or it became damaged, she would feed him to her snake summons. Naruto's blonde hair was framed up just like the Yodame Hokage's, But unlike the Yodame, he had 3 little whisker markings on each side of his face that Anko said gave him a feral look that many women found hot. Now you can see our blonde hero on his way to his last official day as a student, because after today Naruto knew he would be a genin. He would finally be an official ninja of Konohagakure, and that meant he was one step closer to achieving his dream. When Naruto walked into his classroom, he wished he could say he wasn't disappointed. But he was. The only kids that would become ninja were the future clan heads, but even they were not some kind of beacons of hope for the village, that was for sure. Shikamaru Nara, future clan head of the Nara clan, was sleeping like he didn't have a worry in the world. His best friend Choji Akimichi, future clan head of the Akimichi clan, was eating like some kind of human vacuum cleaner, and their only female friend Ino Yamanaka, future clan heiress of the Yamanaka clan, although Naruto did not doubt her father would disown her before allowing her to run their clan into the ground, was fawning over the last emo like he was God's gift to mankind. The last emo was Sasuke Uchiha, the future clan head of the Uchiha clan, and the sole survivor of the Uchiha massacre that his brother committed. It left the boy mentally scared, but nobody seemed to notice, or even try and get the boy to get some help. They just ignored it because their precious Uchiha could do no wrong apparently. He and Naruto had a long history of hating each other. Sasuke was jealous of Naruto's skills and claimed that only a Uchiha elite should have that kind of skill, but Naruto would always just ignore him and continue doing whatever it was that he was doing. This only infuriated the last prick even more, but he wouldn't do anything because he knew Naruto was stronger than him, so he resorted to petty name-calling, in an attempt to get a rise out of him. Then there was Hinata Hyuga, heiress of the Hyuga clan, although Naruto heard from the grapevine that they were planning on giving that title to her little sister and branding her with the cage bird seal, something Naruto was going to get rid of the moment he became Hokage. She was overly shy and a very good person, but she had been dished out a tough hand when she was born into the hard-ass clan. Back down the rows was Shino Aburame, the clan heir to the Aburame clan, and a generally quiet guy. Naruto knew he was constantly examining everything and storing it away for future use. Naruto could respect the boy for his dedication to being a shinobi, but one should not have to resort to stripping all or even almost all of their emotions to be a skilled shinobi. In the front of the room was Kiba Inazaka, future clan head of the Inazaka clan, although Naruto thought that his sister deserved it way more than the annoying brat did. Kiba was always going on about being an alpha male and exerting his dominance. This was probably why he did not like Naruto, because Naruto was stronger and smarter than him at everything. It made Kiba feel threatened, and that caused him to lash out at Naruto. Naruto for his part just ignored Kiba, but if he really got on his nerve he would shoot him and Sasuke a small dose of his killing intent to shut them up. The only people that had a chance of passing was Sai and Sakura. Sai was like a robot and used ink past ninjutsu that he made by drawing on a notepad with an ink brush. He was pretty skilled and smart too, but he was very rigged and only knew so much in only certain fields. He was good, but he was seriously lacking in a lot of areas, and his robot personality made it difficult for others to be around him. Sakura Haruno was the daughter of a civilian councilwoman, something else Naruto was going to disband as soon as he became a ninja, and Naruto was sure that the woman was using her status to make sure her daughter passed, and it was also due to the civilian council that the academy was so easy. Sakura was nothing but a die-hard fangirl, and even she was passing. Besides book smarts, she was nothing more than a civilian. After a while, Naruto's teachers walked in. The first one was a tan-skinned man with a scar running across his nose. His name was Irika, and he was a chunin of Konohagakure. The second man was named Mizuki. He had white hair and was very pale, complicit. Naruto could tell that he didn't like him, but just ignored the man as he was not worth his time. "Okay, today is the day of the graduation exams, so I want everyone ready," spoke Irika as Mizuki passed out various tests. When he got to Naruto, he gave him a dirty look, but Naruto just ignored him and looked at his paper. He knew instantly that there was a genjutsu on his paper, so he removed it and finished before everyone else. That pissed Mizuki off, but he didn't say anything. When everyone was done, Irika ushered them outside for the throwing knives test. "Okay, you guys, here is your next test. You will throw 10 kunai and 10 shuriken. You will get bonus points for hitting the 8 kill spots. as well as how many kunai and shuriken you actually hit your target with, shouted Irika as all of the students liked up to take their turns. Kiba got a 6:7, Hinata got 8:8, Shino got the same as Hinata 8:8, Sakura and Ino were pathetic, only getting a 4:4, Sai got a 7:7, Choji got 6:5, and Shikamaru got a 6:6 because apparently it was too troublesome to throw kunai. Sasuke was the most annoying, getting a 9:9 only to give Naruto a superior than you look, but that look vanished when Naruto got a 10:10 and hit all 8 of the kill spots including both eyes. Sasuke was far from happy, but Irika moved them on to the taijutsu portion next. Naruto was getting tired of Mizuki trying to sabotage his test, so he figured he would teach the man a lesson he surely wouldn't soon forget. After Sasuke was done hanging upside down from some strange taijutsu attack, Naruto entered the ring. Mizuki had a sadistic look much like Anko's, but this one was full of hate instead of childish curiosity. Mizuki rushed at him, but Naruto easily dodged the slow punch the man aimed at his face and delivered a breathtaking knee to the man's solar plexus. Mizuki did not stand up, and Irika quickly called the match in Naruto's favor. After that, Irika ushered them all back into the classroom for the final test. "Okay class, all you will have to do is show me that you can do the 3 basic academy jutsu and you will become official ninja of Konohagakure," spoke Irika. Naruto was defiantly make the old man a part-time teacher here when he became the 5th fire shadow to make sure these idiots stop making pansy ninja and start making real hardcore ninja that the leaf actually needed. Just like Naruto predicted, only the clan heirs plus Sai and Sakura passed the exams. When Naruto came out, he had his leaf forehead protector strapped to his forehead with his bangs falling over the edges just like the 4th fire shadow. On his way out, Mizuki tried to convince him that there was a secret exam to become a chunin, but Naruto declined as he knew there was no such thing. Being around the old man most of the time taught you much about the village, and that only led Naruto to believe that Mizuki was up to something. Right when he was about to cross the wall that protected the Uzumaki clan compound, Anko showed up out of nowhere with an almost scared look on her face. "Hey Anko-chan, how was T&I today?" asked Naruto with a smile. He was happy to see that cute blush on Anko's face appear like always. She looked so hot in her new outfit. She now wore dark blue ANBU style pants that were pretty tight, a green Tokubetsu Jonin jacket on top of her fishnet undershirt. Anko really liked it because when she unzipped it a little bit to show off the girls, she knew Naruto was looking. She also knew that he was looking at the side of her breasts as her impressive chest pushed the jacket out a good ways, allowing him to see the sides of her double D-cup breasts. She had ditched those weird rain boots for some all-black combat boots. Around her neck was a purple gem necklace that Naruto had bought for her to complement her beautiful hair. He remembered how she went cherry red and how he didn't see her for a week after that. When he did finally start to see her again, she always had the necklace on, just like he always had on the necklace that she gave him on. It was fun. Got to see some poor fool scream bloody murder, which is always fun. But that's not why I came over. "Do you still want to go on that date you promised me all those years ago?" asked Anko as she looked away from Naruto, too scared of rejection. "Of course. Does tomorrow night sound good for you?" asked Naruto as he took and kissed Anko's knuckles. Anko flushed cherry red right before nodding vigorously, and then she took off into the night. "Well, Mom, Dad, I think your son just got his first date, and with such an amazing woman," spoke Naruto as he entered the Uzumaki clan compound. Naruto's Earth Grudge Fear Chapter 3. 1 week after the Genin exam. As Naruto walked back to the academy, hopefully for the last time, he couldn't help but remember what happened 5 days ago. He had promised to take Anko out on a romantic dinner over 2 years ago, and he was happy that she remembered their little promise. When Naruto showed up to pick her up for their date, he had been wearing a new design called a tuxedo, which was made specifically for him. It didn't take long for him to make it. Not too long ago, he discovered he could even make clothes with his Earth Grudge Fear threads. The clothes were very strong and would repair themselves if chakra was applied to the clothes. His particular tux was all black and had a dark gray undershirt to offset all of the black, with silver cuff links. His shoes were polished until they shone, and his undershirt was unbuttoned lightly so that his muscular chest was visible underneath the necklace Anko had given him. When the door opened up, Naruto was shocked to say the least. Standing there was not the Anko he was used to seeing. The Anko he was used to seeing was work/tease Anko, but this Anko was model/die via blood loss from the nose area. She was wearing a dark purple form-fitting dress that stopped a little past the middle of her bubble butt and her knee. She had back jeweled earring in her ears, and the necklace he bought her around her neck. She also had on some dark purple stiletto high heels on that really helped to show off those amazing legs of hers. All Naruto could say was, "Damn." This seemed to please her as she smiled and took his arm like a lady would. Naruto just smiled as she led him to a dark-lit dango bar that she was obviously familiar with. As they had walked, every man had looked on with shock, jealousy, and lust at Anko and Naruto, while the women looked on with shock, jealousy, and lust at Naruto and Anko. They just ignored everyone except each other as they talked about whatever came to mind at the moment. When they got to the dango bar, the people looked at them both with barely restrained shock. Naruto pulled out a chair for Anko, who graciously took it, and then Naruto took his seat across from her. They both ordered the same thing. They ordered a round of every flavor dango and a bottle of sake. They toasted to Naruto's graduation, but Naruto could tell there was something about the way she said graduation that was iffy, but forgot about it as the night rolled on. Naruto took Anko to a beautiful lake with swan flying around. Truly made the night magical. When Naruto walked Anko up to her front door, he was surprised when she pulled him in and gave him a deep kiss. It was very nice, and Naruto quickly got over his shock and kissed Anko back. After a while, they broke up and went their separate ways. Neither Naruto nor Anko could get much sleep that night because neither of them could stop thinking about that magical night and the amazing kiss at the end. By the end of the week, everyone knew that Naruto and Anko were an item. When Naruto walked into the classroom, everyone gave him a weird stare. He could only assume it was because of the rumors about him and Anko. Naruto just shrugged his shoulders and sat down in his own seat. Eventually, the students' senseis started to show up, but none of them were anything special except a certain few. The first one to interest Naruto was a man with short black hair, tan skin, wearing the standard Jonin attire, wearing a sash with the character for fire on it, and was smoking a cigarette. Naruto instantly knew that this was the old man's wayward son Asuma. Apparently, the old man and Asuma had a falling out, so Asuma joined the 12 Guardians, the Fire Lord's personal bodyguards. Apparently, he was back, and as a Jonin sensei no less. Whoever got him as a sensei would be very lucky. Apparently, Naruto wasn't lucky enough because Asuma called out Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji's names. Naruto could only figure Asuma wanted to train the next generation of the Ino Shikacho. The second person to interest Naruto was a woman with wine-red eyes who was wearing what looked like bandages all over her body. She was Kurinia Yuhi, the Genjutsu mistress of the leaf, but Naruto only knew her because Anko had introduced him to her a few months ago. She seemed like a nice enough person, but Naruto hopped he wasn't on her team as he sucked at casting Genjutsu completely. He could break out of just about any Genjutsu, but creating one is completely lost to him, so he was relieved when she called for Hinata, Shino, and Kiba, but was slightly skeptical of the choices. Kurinia specialized in Genjutsu and not really anything else. She must have been banking on their clans to teach them everything they would need to know for offense while she taught the teamwork and life experience type things. In Naruto's opinion, it was not a good match, but he would have to hold his tongue for a little bit longer if he wanted to change anything. After Kurinia left, a man with brown hair and black eyes walked it. Naruto had never seen this man before, but could sense that he had felt his chakra, so Naruto figured the man was an ex-ANBU ninja of some kind, probably worked in the old man's office more than likely. Naruto was relatively shocked when he looked at him and made a "follow me" sign. Naruto instantly got up and followed the man out of the room. After a while of walking, they were on the roof before the man stopped and turned around to look at Naruto. "My name is Yamato, and I will be your Jonin instructor from now on," spoke the man. He saw Naruto looking at him funny but was not sure what he was trying to see. "Why am I the only one you took with you? Aren't there supposed to be 3 genin per team?" asked Naruto. He didn't know this ninja, so he didn't really see any real reason besides his perfect academy record as to why he would want him as an apprentice, which is what Naruto figured this was. "I will be your mentor from this day forward, and you shall be my apprentice. The Hokage asked me to be your Jonin sensei as he believes I will be able to help you learn and master many things you don't already know, and help you learn how to use any new elemental bloodline limits you might ascertain, spoke the man. He didn't really have a facial expression, and Naruto just figured the man had probably been in the ANBU for far too long and had probably dedicated his entire life to his work. Some people just don't know how to relax, but then again some people relax far too much. So the old man told you about that, huh? Well, if you could teach me how to use a bloodline limit, then you must have some kind of previous knowledge of using them. I can only guess you have an elemental bloodline limit that nobody knows about, but my only question is why don't they? With Konoha's rumor factory, anyone and everyone who had a bloodline to a freckle has at least 10 rumors about them. So how were you able to get around without anyone knowing, spoke Naruto. He was pleased to see that stone-hard face turn into something that resembled shock before he fixed it. I was an experiment, the last one before he left the village, which left me with a power he greatly wanted. He was experimenting with the cells of the first fire shadow, spoke the man with venom in his voice. Naruto has a small look of shock about him, but quickly schooled his features, much to the approval of his sensei, and started to think a mile a minute. So you can use the Shodai Hokage's Mokutan bloodline limit, whispered Naruto with awe. Already he was coming up with plans on how to get the man's heart without getting in trouble. If the man was even close to as strong as Naruto thought he would have to kill him quickly while he was unaware. Yes and no. I can use it, but nowhere near what the Shodai was said to be able to do. I can use it like a normal bloodline, but not the godly extent that the first was said to be able to do, spoke Yamato. He was examining Naruto's facial features, and was pleased to see that the boy already had great skills in hiding his emotions. The Hokage is banking a lot on you taking that hat from him soon, boy, so I can only hope that don't disappoint him. He really wants to retire, and if even one rumor about your skill and strength are true, then you have what it takes to be the next Hokage, thought Yamato. I bet that is disappointing, isn't it? But I would just be happy to be able to do it at all, as it is the bloodline everyone wants, except the people of this village who can only think about the Uchiha and their thieving ways, spoke Naruto with venom in his voice. He really didn't like Sasuke or the Uchiha, as they were the ones that would mainly give him dirty looks, and they would even sometimes detain him in the Uchiha police station. The last time that it happened, the Hokage blew up on the deceased clan head, and from then on the Uchiha ignored him completely. It was kind of a release, honestly, but being ignored was probably even worse than being hated. I don't feel disappointed, as I has trained very hard. But enough of that. Meet me in training ground 10 in 10 minutes. If you're late, you won't pass, spoke the man before he used the body flicker technique to flick away. So there was another test. I knew I saw some kind of worry in Anko-chan's eyes when I talked about being a genin. I will just have to make sure I pass. So Anko-chan won't have to worry, thought Naruto as he hailed it to training ground 10. It only took him 4 minutes to get there, which shocked Yamato, but he quickly got over his shock and nodded his head. It looks like you're pretty fast, and have some good stamina, as you don't seem out of breath. Okay, here is the test you will have to pass to actually become a genin. You will have to defeat me in combat. You can use any jutsu, fighting style, whatever it is that you want, but you must defeat me before this timer goes off. You have 30 minutes, spoke Yamato. Naruto quickly held up half a hand seal, but still 10 clones came into existence. Naruto had truly mastered the shadow clone jutsu to a point he only needed one hand to make them anymore. The first clone charged Yamato at impressive speeds. The clone was able to hold his own against Yamato for about 10 minutes before it was defeated. Yamato looked shocked that it took that long for him to defeat a clone that only had 10% of the original's fighting capabilities. Naruto nodded his head at 2 more, who quickly rushed Yamato once again. He was on the defensive for a while, but when he pulled out his kunai, he was able to destroy the clones. Naruto pointed to the next clone that pulled out its katana and charged him. Yamato received multiple shallow cuts from the clone and had to resort to using ninjutsu to defeat it. When Naruto saw Yamato use ninjutsu, he nodded at another clone that charged Yamato, but when he got about halfway to him, he started going through hand seals. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu, shouted the clone. Instantly, a red-hot fireball shot out of the clone's mouth and blasted off towards Yamato at incredible speeds. Yamato saw the fireball coming and quickly started going through hand seals of his own. With style. With locking wall jutsu, shouted Yamato as wood came out of the ground and formed a dome around him, protecting him from the fire. When the fire died down, Yamato went through a few hand seals and shouted out with style, "Wood Dragon Jutsu." When he got done calling out the name of his jutsu, a wooden dragon came out of the ground and killed his clone. Naruto saw the wood release techniques and had to admit, even as watered down as it was, the Mokuton was really an amazing bloodline, but Naruto had his scorch release, and a few jutsu he had wanted to try for some time now. Quickly Naruto started going through hand seals and stopped and held up his hands to his mouth while he sucked in air. Scorch release. Dragon breath jutsu, shouted Naruto, as a long stream of red and white fire launched out of his mouth. When the fire hit the ground, it spread out in all directions, incinerating everything that it touched. Yamato saw this and knew instantly that his wood-locking wall jutsu would not stand up to such an overwhelming fire-style jutsu. So he jumped high into the trees and tried to escape the wave of fire coming his way. Naruto saw Yamato run for the hills and smiled to himself. He already had a plan for the man, and it would involve seeing if wood could stand the heat. Yamato stopped running to catch his breath, but right before he could stand up, ninja wire appeared everywhere and pinned him to the tree he was standing on. When he followed the ninja wire, he saw one of Naruto's clones going through hand signs. When the clone got done going through hand signs, it shouted out, "Fire release, Dragon Fire technique." After he called this out, fire blasted out of his mouth and traveled down through the ninja wire straight into Yamato's body. The clone was still on guard, and was thankful it was when it saw Yamato turn into a wood dumby. It gave it just enough time to see Yamato unmerge with a tree right behind him before Yamato destroyed him. Now Naruto knew that Yamato could travel within the trees, which were not a good thing as almost all of Konoha was forests. Naruto quickly thought up a way to smoke Yamato out of the trees. He made 2 more clones and they all started going through hand size. 3 of the clones called out Wine Style, Great Breakthrough Jutsu. The other 3 clones called out Fire Style, Great Fireball Jutsu, and the real Naruto shouted out Scorch Release, Dragon Breath Jutsu. For powerful streams of sun-hot fire shout out in opposite directions, completely incinerating the surrounding forest. All anyone could see now was fire, and Naruto just waited for Yamato to show himself. It did not take long as a root came out of the ground. From that root Yamato emerged, coughing up smoke and sweating like a pig on market day. Naruto did not give him the chance to recover and held the blade next to Yamato's neck right before the timer went off. "Looks like I win, Yamato-sensei," joked Naruto as he started to use medical ninjutsu to heal the man. He had a good deal of smoke in his lungs and a few burn marks on his body. For someone who got a watered-down version of the first Fire Shadow's bloodline, he used it very well. Naruto could only imagine how powerful the man would be if he had the full-blown bloodline. After that, Naruto and Yamato talked about a training schedule. Yamato decided to teach Naruto water release as he needed to know how to put out the fires that he started. Naruto wanted to start training immediately, but Yamato said no as he had to fix the forest that Naruto incinerated. Naruto was mad that the man wanted to postpone his training, but let it go when the man gave him the stink eye. When Naruto got home, he pulled out a book on how to master water release from his clan's library and went outside. When he was outside, he made 100 clones and ordered them to start mastering water release, and the end he made 100 more and ordered them to master earth release. He would show his sensei that he didn't need him. After all, he just got done kicking the man's ass. For the next month, Naruto mastered earth and water release. Yamato was very surprised Naruto was able to learn how to master elemental training so fast, but Naruto just shrugged and continued to practice and master earth and water release. The next 2 months were on learning and mastering various earth and water-style ninjutsu, which once again Naruto miraculously was able to do without any problems whatsoever. The 4th month was more on fighting and getting used to using those jutsu that Yamato had taught him in combat situations. Naruto was a natural at using ninjutsu, and his amazingly large chakra reserves only made it easier. It was one of the reasons that Naruto could be considered a one-man army. One day, while they were training, a rat-masked ANBU ninja jumped down from the trees and handed Yamato a message. "The Hokage needs to see you two as soon as possible. There is some trouble happening on one of the new Genin's mission. Apparently they got into some trouble and need some backup," spoke the ANBU ninja. "What can you expect with such a joke for an academy?" spoke Naruto as he looked at the ANBU ninja. "That is true. spoke the ANBU ninja before leaving using the body flicker technique. Come, we need to get to the Hokage, spoke Yamato as he started to run in the direction of the Hokage's tower. I know that, I was right here, you ass. This man is really working my nerves, thought Naruto as he ran behind Yamato. It didn't take long to get to the Hokage tower, and when they got inside, Naruto got a hug from the secretary and left a clone with her to catch them up as he did miss her. Reporting for duty, Hokage-sama, spoke Yamato in a completely serious voice. Naruto may have found the man annoying, but he was a good ninja and was exactly how ninja should act when working. Ah, good, you two are here. We have had some problems with Team 7's first C-ranked mission. Apparently the client lied to us, and it is actually an A-ranked mission and not a C-ranked one. Kakashi believes that with some backup they will be able to finish this mission without any fatalities. But just to be safe, I have decided to send your team, as Naruto-kun here is an expert medic, and Yamato, you are a ninja with lots of battle experience. Your mission in to assassinate Zabuza Momochi unless he leaves Wave Country, Gato of Gato Shipping, and any other rogue ninja residing inside of Wave Country. It will be a low S-ranked mission. Do you accept? Asked the Hokage. Yamato and Naruto nodded their heads and were off to Wave Country. How long will it take for us to get to Wave Country? Asked Naruto as he and Yamato passed the entrance to Konoha. It should only take an hour at the most, so keep a sharp eye out for any ambushes, spoke Yamato as they flew across the trees at amazing speeds. After an hour of running, they came upon a sight that even Yamato in his ANBU mode would have to admit was pitiful. Sasuke Uchiha was brooding so hard that little thunderclouds had materialized over his head. Sakura Haruno's eyes had hearts in them that neither Naruto nor Yamato could figure out how she did it, and said who had that smile that they both found creepy. The saddest of them all was the sensei that was letting it all happen just so he could read more of his pervert book. Both Yamato and Naruto were so mad they were close to snapping. When they jumped out of the trees, everyone's attention snapped in their direction. Sasuke looked angry, Sakura looked confused, Sai looked creepy, Kakashi was a pervert, and the bridge builder looked ready to wet himself, or he was just shaking because of how drunk he was. Yamato, I was wondering who they were going to send, spoke Kakashi with his eye smile. Naruto did not even give him a chance to even acknowledge him before snapping at him. I will be reporting the disgusting sight I saw that you call a team when we get back to Konoha Hatake. I don't care if you were an ANBU captain when you were still just a child. What I saw was ridiculous, and it reflects poorly on all of Konoha. If you just want to sit around and read your pervert book, that is fine. I will have a quick chat with the Hokage and have you demoted to a chunin so you can play gate guard for the rest of your life, so you will have plenty of time to read your pervert books, spoke Naruto as he gave Kakashi a hard glare. Naruto, just because you were a hot shot coming out of the academy 4 months ago, I wouldn't suggest you threaten me. But that was as far as Kakashi got before Naruto cut him off again. I could still be a civilian, and if I saw that crap, I would have reported it to the Hokage anyways. It is not a threat, Hatake, it is a promise. Unless you start cleaning your act, I suggest you find a chair you like because you'll need it for gate duty, spoke Naruto as he and Kakashi stared each other down. Yamato decided to intervene and put a stop to this nonsense. Kakashi, Naruto, stop this at once. Kakashi, Naruto is right. What we saw was a disgrace to the standards all Konoha nin try to preserve. Naruto, you should not speak to your commanding officer like that, chided Yamato as he stood in between both of them. Are you two here to be our backup? Asked Kakashi, as he returned his attention to Yamato as he ignored Naruto staring at him. Yes, in a matter of speaking we are. We were sent here to assassinate Gato, Zabuza, and any other missing nin in Wave Country. It is an official S-ranked mission granted to us by the Sandaime Hokage, spoke Yamato. What? How did the dobe get an S-ranked mission? Shouted Sasuke as he glared daggers at Naruto. By not shouting in enemy territory like an idiot, by working hard and becoming strong, by not brooding and no insulting everyone that crosses my path, runt, spoke Naruto as he brushed Sasuke off like he didn't even exist. Sasuke looked ready to kill, but Kakashi shot him a look that said, shut up. We need to keep moving. Your team will guard the bridge builder, while my team handles any nuke nin we come across, spoke Yamato. Kakashi nodded and got his team in the diamond formation. None of the, besides Sai, looked happy about the situation. Eventually, they made it inside of Wave Country when an unnatural mist started to set in. Naruto could tell there was chakra in the air with his sensor abilities, and placed his hand on his katana's handle. That was when he heard the sound of something spinning and coming in their direction. Quickly, Naruto shouted, "Duck!" Everyone ducked to the ground. Kakashi dragged Sakura down. Yamato dragged the bridge builder down. Sai and Sasuke were able to duck in time by themselves. But Naruto didn't duck. He quickly pulled out his katana and used the flying swallow technique to channel wind chakra into the blade. Naruto quickly blocked what looked to be a giant cleaver with his sword, but the giant cleaver did not last long against his flying swallow-empowered katana and was cut into 2 pieces. When Naruto turned around and found the man he was looking for, standing on a branch with the bottom half of the giant cleaver in his hands was Zabuza Momochi. He had the standard Kiri outfit on, but had tape all around his face. The man had tan skill and dark short hair. Even with only half of the sword, Naruto could tell the man was having some difficulties holding it without using both hands. It was a weakness Naruto noticed instantly. Well, that isn't something you see every day. A genin using a jonin level technique to a masterful level may have caught me off guard. But it won't happen again, spoke Zabuza as he stood a good 6+ feet tall in the air. Zabuza Momochi, my sensei and I have been sent here to terminate you. You are hindering Konoha Shinobi and that will not go unpunished. You have either 2 choices. You can leave Wave Country and never come back or interfere with another Konoha mission, or you can stay and die. The choice is yours, but I suggest you choose wisely, spoke Naruto as he started channeling wind-released chakra into his katana. Ha! You think you and your sensei are enough to stop me? I laugh at your stupidity. Let's see here. How about you fight my apprentice and I fight your sensei? It will be a battle to the death, shouted Zabuza as he charged Yamato. Naruto just ignored the man and focused his attention of the ninja with the Kiri Hunter Nin mask on. Whoever he or she was, they were young, that was for sure. Please die with some dignity, spoke the Hunter Nin. But the voice was distorted because of the mask, so Naruto could not figure out the sex of the person. Only if you do so first, spoke Naruto as he charged the Hunter Nin. The Hunter Nin quickly started going through hand signs before calling out 1,000 flying ice needles of death. Instantly the fog turned into hundreds of small ice needles that were all pointed at Naruto before shooting towards him with amazing speeds. Naruto stopped his charge and started going through hand signs of his own. When he got done, he shouted out, "Scorch Release, Multi-Fire Bullet Jutsu." Instantly hundreds of tiny bullets of scorching fire shot out of Naruto's mouth and hit all of the incoming ice needles. The Hunter Nin looked surprised for some reason, but Naruto did not let it distract him. So he swung his katana and unleashed a powerful blade of wind chakra at the Hunter Nin. The chakra blade moved very fast, but damn if that Hunter Nin have the fastest hands he had ever seen. When the Hunter Nin got done going through hand signs, he shouted, "Ice Release, Ice Dome Jutsu." Instantly a dome of ice surrounded the Hunter Nin. Naruto thought his wind blade technique would easily cut through the Hunter Nin's little ice dome, but he was surprised when the ice dome stood strong. "You are very strong, but you will not survive my next technique," spoke the Hunter Nin as he once again started going through hand signs. When he was done, he shouted, "Ice Style, Demonic Ice Mirror Jutsu." Instantly 21 mirrors of ice surrounded Naruto, and in all of the mirrors was an image of the Hunter Nin. The Hunter Nin reached back and then threw ice needles from all of the mirrors. Naruto was surprised at this as he thought it was all an illusion, but it seemed that all of the mirrors could attack him at once. Quickly he started thinking of a way to escape, but the ice needles were first, so he started going through hand signs. When he got done weaving his hand signs, he called out, "Earth Style, Earth Dome Jutsu." As soon as Naruto called out the name of his jutsu, a dome of earth covered him. He heard the ice needles hit the earth dome, but none of them were able to pierce, which was a good thing in Naruto's book. Quickly Naruto started going through hand signs. When he was done, he let his earth dome fall and called out the name of his jutsu before the Hunter Nin could attack him. He shouted, "Scorch Release." Extremely steaming murder and 21 balls of white and red fire started surrounding him. Naruto stuck out his hands and instantly the balls shot out towards the mirrors. When the fireballs hit the ice mirrors, all you could hear was ice hissing as it melted super fast right before a big explosion. Naruto saw the hunter Nin fly into the air and didn't let the chance pass him up. Naruto quickly appeared beside the flying fake hunter Nin and grabbed him by the shoulders before spinning around and slamming him into the ground. When Naruto saw that the hunter ninja wasn't getting up, he smirked, knowing that he had won their little battle. But still, it was close. Naruto looked over towards Zabuza and knew instantly that he had to help his sensei out. Naruto quickly ran over to where he heard metal clashing. When he got there, he saw Zabuza and Yamato fighting using Kinjutsu. Naruto saw that Yamato was using some kind of wood sword and shield to fend off Zabuza, so Naruto snuck up behind Zabuza as he and Yamato were locking swords. Naruto willed his earth grudge fear to wrap around his hand until I looked like a giant whip that he channeled wind chakra through. Naruto pulled his hand back and then swung it forward and watched as the whip cut Zabuza's head off. Zabuza's head slowly started to slide off right before falling to the ground and dying. Yamato looked tired but thankful. Kakashi looked impressed. Sasuke and Sakura looked jeepers creepers scared. And Sai looked serious. But Naruto knew the creepy smile was just around the corner. Naruto didn't say anything and quickly took Zabuza's heart for his own. "What took you so long?" asked Yamato as he stretched his arm muscles after that difficult battle with Zabuza. Zabuza's apprentice was far stronger than Zabuza and had the famous ice release bloodline of Kiri. "It took me some time to get a feel for how it worked, its weaknesses and things like that. I also wanted to see what all it could do, and I was very impressed," spoke Naruto. He saw the look Yamato was giving him and nodded his head. "So you did use the earth grudge fear to get the hunter Nin's heart. So you could use his ice release," spoke Yamato as he eyed Naruto. Naruto just smiled and walked over to him and started to apply healing chakra to his body. A few seconds later, Yamato was as good as new. "You wound me, sensei. Do you really think I would kill someone just to get their bloodline? I am not that shallow, trust me," spoke Naruto with a faint smile on his face. "Oh, then what did you do with him?" asked Yamato, only to see Naruto point off to the side. The mist was clearing and soon Yamato could see the hunter Nin in a small crater not moving. "So you knocked him out, huh?" was all Yamato said before looking back at Naruto. "So what are you going to do with him?" "Either convince him to join Konoha or let him go," spoke Naruto with a shrug of the shoulders. It seemed this wasn't sufficient for Sasuke though. "Why are you helping that loser? You should just kill him and be done with it," shouted Sasuke, veins popping out of his neck and his one-tome Sharingan flaring. "Just what I would expect from a weakling who couldn't even protect himself," spoke Naruto as he stood up and walked over to the hunter Nin and threw him over his shoulder. Sasuke went to attack Naruto, but Kakashi stopped him. The bridge builder's house was very nice, but his daughter was a gem. She was so kind, smart, and beautiful that Naruto found him spending more time with her than learning how to use his water release. He did learn that even after 4 months, Kakashi had not even taught his genin tree walking, which was another thing Naruto was going to report to the Hokage. He knew the Hokage wouldn't do anything, but when he became Hokage, he would have proof that Kakashi was not doing his job properly and demote him for sure. They stayed in Wave Country for a week, and in that time Naruto spent most of his time trying to convince Haku that life was still worth living and that he should really consider joining Konoha. Haku was a stubborn guy to say the least, but he didn't leave, which Naruto took as a good sign. Naruto knew the closer the bridge got to be complete, the more likely Gato would come with whomever to try and kill the bridge builder. He was right. After 1 week, Gato and an army of bandits were seen coming towards the village. Kakashi left Sakura at the bridge builder's house to protect their family, but Naruto didn't trust Sakura for a second to protect Tsunami and her son, as much of a pain in the ass that he was. So he left a shadow clone to protect them from the shadows. When Naruto, Yamato, Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sai got to the bridge, they saw Gato and at least 1,000 bandits. Naruto knew that even though there were a lot of them, they were simply bandits, nothing compared to a trained ninja. "Let me handle this," spoke Naruto as he stepped forwards. Sasuke instantly started bitching when he heard Naruto say that. "What make you think you're going to get all of them when I, an Uchiha elite, am much more suited for a mission like this?" spoke Sasuke with the Uchiha vanity showing again. This spoke Naruto as he slapped Sasuke across the face with the piece of paper written by the Hokage that said Yamato and Naruto were the ones who were supposed to eliminate all of the treats in Wave Country, while Kakashi's team was supposed to protect the bridge builder and his family. As far as I am concerned, you're not even supposed to be here, and I will be writing that on my report as well, spoke Naruto as he started to walk toward the bandits and looked at them all like they were bugs beneath his shoes. Naruto counted how many there were and began going through hand signs. When he was done, he shouted out Scorch Release, Demon Lantern Jutsu. Suddenly hundreds of white heads with horns sticking out of their skulls with a smooth red aura around them formed in the air around Naruto. Using a mental command, Naruto sent the demon lanterns after the bandits with a smile on his face. The bandits saw this and stopped in their tracks. This wasn't like what they had been told. Gato had told them that all ninja could do was barely manipulate the elements to hide them or to confuse them. This didn't look like an illusion to them, and soon they started to run away. Unfortunately, they were not fast enough to outrun Naruto's Scorch Release Jutsu. The demon lanterns would crash into someone and then mummify them. It was a gruesome sight to behold. Each demon lantern had its own target, and they would chase that person down until they ran into them. Just like many other Scorch Release Jutsu, this one caused all of the water in the victim's body to boil, and then come out as steam, leaving the bodies nothing but mummified steam. Soon all that was left was Gato himself, though he was trying to run away with his little legs. Naruto wasn't about to let him get away and started to go through hand signs once again. Scorch style. Incinerating bullet jutsu, shouted Naruto, as he pointed his index finger at Gato's escaping back. A small ball of white fire formed at the end of it right before Naruto pressed his thumb to the back of his index finger, causing the white ball of fire to shoot off towards Gato. The white ball of energy was incredibly fast and had a faint aura of red fire around it like a shooting star right before it pierced Gato's heart. After 3 seconds, Gato's body exploded in a giant white-hot explosion that left a large crater and incinerated all of the plant life around it as well. There was no body left to recover after that. After that, the villagers partied for 3 days straight. They were easily able to afford it as Naruto had transferred all of Gato's assets to Wave Country and made sure that everyone got their fair share of the money. With Gato gone, they were easily able to get supplies, but Naruto had to remind them that they did have to pay for the S and C ranked mission. But they were not worried, as with the money they got from Gato, they easily were able to pay for the missions. As they left, Tazuna told Naruto that they were going to name the bridge after him, but he asked them to use his last name as it would last much longer. They all agreed, and soon the Great Uzumaki Bridge was formed. After much talk, Naruto was able to convince Haku to come back to Konoha with him. The executioner's blade was strapped to Haku's back, and Naruto promised him he could keep it as a gift. Haku seemed a bit shy, but other than that he was a good guy. Naruto was happy he had decided to join Konoha because it would be a pain in the ass to complain to the Hokage that Kakashi was doing a botched job when he let someone who attacked Konoha ninja go. The thing that surprised Naruto the most was when Tsunami told him that she had fallen for him, and that she was heartbroken to see him leave. Naruto knew he was going to catch fire from Enko later, but he also knew he would have to repopulate the Uzumaki clan, so he had agreed to the CRA, so now he would need multiple wives to bear him multiple children. He informed Tsunami that if she was willing to share him, then he would love for her to come with him to Konoha. He instantly gave him a very deep kiss and agreed to it. When he asked her what about her son, she said that he and his grandfather were going to go around Wave Country and help out all of the people there, so she would have been left alone anyways. Naruto just smiled at her, tossed her on his back, making her blush brightly, and hauled ass to Konoha. Naruto's Earth Grudge Fear Chapter 4. Naruto wouldn't saw that life had been great for him this past month, while he defiantly couldn't say it was all bad either. He had saved a country, met someone special, killed a too powerful nuke ninja, gained a new heart, and had gained access to a new element. He also had gotten Haku to join Konoha, and better yet, he agreed to restart the Yuki clan here in Konoha, making him, Naruto, and Sasuke the last of their clans here in Konoha. They had a lot to live up to, true, but Naruto knew they could do it. Naruto had gotten in touch with Tazuna, telling him he had a paying job in Konoha for him. Naruto told him he wanted him to create a clan compound close to Naruto's clan compound. He wanted them to be like the Nara, Yamanaka, and Akimichi clans in the future. He could see it now, the Yuki/Uzumaki alliance. It had a nice ring to it. Of course, he did pay with a small fraction of the money he got from one of Gato's secret banks. He made sure the people of Wave had way more than they would ever need, and then took the rest for the Uzumaki clan, though now a portion of it was going to the Yuki clan. Haku had been against it at first, but it was kind of hard to start up a clan with no money and no members, so he begrudgingly accepted it. Naruto should have been really happy, excited to have the chance to learn some new ninjutsu skills, a new element, as well as a train with someone his age who was almost as strong as him. He should have been shouting at the top of his lungs about how great life was for him. But there was one part of his life that dragged down his day and drowned his joy: Anko. When Anko had seen Naruto, she instantly ran up to him and smothered him with passionate kisses that made Sakura and Sasuke blush and Kakashi chuckle perverted. Naruto's own captain still had that stony look, and the other guy, Sai, had that creepy smile still plastered on his face. This was great. Naruto loved Anko's affection. But then doom and gloom set in. Anko noticed a woman who was obviously not a ninja, very lovely on the eyes, and had a kind aura about her. But what pissed Anko off was that she was holding onto Naruto's arm far too closely for her tastes. She started to snap at Tsunami about how she shouldn't be holding on to other people's men like that, but Tsunami didn't take offense, understanding why Anko was so defensive. All hell broke loose when Tsunami told Anko that she and Naruto were now a couple, which meant that Anko and Tsunami were sharing the same man. Something Anko knew would happen, but that didn't mean she was happy about it. Anko damn near killed Naruto that day and left him beaten and bloodied on the side of the road, looking nothing short of a pancake. Tsunami instantly went to check on him and was amazed at how quickly Naruto healed. Naruto tried to reason with Anko, but she was far too emotional and wouldn't listen to reason. She told Naruto that she was through with him and then disappeared. Naruto assured Tsunami things would be all right and that Anko would come around. But with each passing day, he began to worry more and more about her. She hadn't come to any of their preset training sessions, hadn't answered any of his messages, and he hadn't seen her around the village for almost a month. Naruto was seriously starting to get depressed. On the other hand, things between him and Tsunami were going great. Tsunami wasn't a shinobi. She was a very kind, loving, good-hearted housewife. She quickly made friends with Naruto's neighbors and would go visit the other housewives around their neighborhood. This really helped Naruto out around the village. People were already starting to like him more and more, having a gossip network through Tsunami about Naruto, showing them he was a great guy and he wasn't doing anything weird when nobody was looking. The housewives and even their husbands thought that everything Tsunami was telling them was the truth, because honestly she had no reason to lie. This was a lie. Naruto was teaching Tsunami a few things about being a ninja, though not ninjutsu, but things like hiding in plain sight, stealing, and other skills like information's gathering. This made Tsunami much more deadly, and nobody but Naruto knew the difference. Naruto and Tsunami had so much fun together. When Naruto would wake up, she would be right there holding on to him with that dreamy look on her face as she slept with a cute look on her face. They hadn't done that. One reason was because Naruto wasn't ready, and because he felt he would be betraying Anko somehow. Tsunami kept Naruto's place clean, always had something to eat ready for him, and would bring him bento lunches when he was out training. Naruto really appreciated her helping him out, though secretly he was a little worried. He was a genin living in a clan house with his girlfriend, but he didn't like thinking he was living off of his family's money. He wanted to hurry up and become a chunin so he could support both him and Tsunami on his own, without relying on his dead family. He wanted them to see that he could prevail even on his own and protect and provide for the one he cared about all on his own. Knock, knock, knock. "Oh, Naruto-kun, someone is at the door, could you get that for me?" called Tsunami in a sing-song voice from the kitchen. She loved her new life so much that every day when she would wake up she would count to 10 and pray that it wasn't a dream. Naruto was such a great guy. He was handsome even if a little young, he was kind, strong, could support the both of them and maybe one day a child of their own, and best of all he had this animal magnetism about him. Just being close to him made her mind fog over. Her body would start to get all hot and bothered, followed by very dirty thoughts. She didn't want to come off as that type of woman, but it just felt so natural. She was able to restrain herself with tons of willpower, and promised herself she would wait until Naruto was ready, no matter how much she had to suffer. She was able to occupy her time with one of her favorite pastimes: housework. She loved cooking more than anything and would always make Naruto a nice breakfast that she could proudly say he always loved. Her favorite part of cooking was making his lunch and then taking it out to him wherever he would be training. He would always flash her that shining smile full of perfectly straight white teeth with elongated fangs and would eat and talk with her. After that she would stick around, sometimes for hours, and watch his sweaty body go through taijutsu stances or watch as he practiced new ninjutsu techniques. "All right," shouted Naruto as he walked up the front door. He slid it open and saw his sensei looking down at him. Naruto did the only thing he could think of when he saw that stony face. He rose up one hand and, keeping a straight face, gave the man a peace sign with his fingers. His teacher was not impressed but didn't say anything, so predictable. "Yo, sensei, what are you doing here?" asked Naruto, since his teacher never came to his house. He always had to meet him somewhere far away, like in the furthest part of the forest on the other side of the village. "I have decided to put you in the Chunin exams. I think you're ready for it, and if you make it far enough you might become a Chunin by the end of the year," spoke the man as he handed Naruto a scroll full of information about the Chunin exam and the rules. "Pretty cool, though I wish I had mastered water release and learned some ice release techniques," spoke Naruto as he read through the scroll. It was pretty straightforward, nothing overly complex, and as amazing as it seemed they would be allowed to kill one another, not something Naruto figured the old man would condone. "You are lucky to have come as far as you have with your water release. You can't expect to master both water and ice release in 1 month," spoke Yamato with a hint of annoyance in his voice. Naruto didn't do anything to acknowledge he had heard it, but he smirked on the inside knowing that his sensei was jealous. About 3 weeks ago, Yamato agreed to teach Naruto water-based ninjutsu and went on this long spill about how learning elements took years of practice and how having an affinity for that element of one that conflicted with it would affect how fast he could learn it, its power, and how much chakra it would take to use that element's ninjutsu. Naruto just drifted off into La La Land as the man droned on. It was like he had forgotten that Naruto had learned and mastered 2 elements and a sub-element. Naruto wanted to tell him to shut up, but learning from a scroll and a person were worlds apart, so he dealt with it. It turned out that water ninjutsu wasn't as hard as Yamato had gone on trying to make it sound. Naruto wasn't a master right off the bat or anything, but slowly but surely you could see him making progress. After a little longer than 3 weeks had passed, Naruto was getting very familiar with water ninjutsu. He was no master, but he could still use low-level water-based ninjutsu. Needless to say, Yamato was a little miffed, or maybe jealous, that Naruto had learned water ninjutsu so much quicker than he had and had been pouting for a few days now. "Gotcha. So is there anything else you wanted to let me know about?" asked Naruto, looking up at his sensei with boredom in his eyes. The man just stared at him for a moment before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Jerk, thought Naruto. "Who was at the door?" Naruto-kun asked Tsunami as she came out of the kitchen and walked towards Naruto. Naruto, seeing the sway in her lovely hips, her large chest bouncing up and down, and that cute pink apron on, made Naruto want to do something really bad, but he forced it down. Lemon scene. As Tsunami walked towards with Naruto, she smiled in her head. Naruto probably wouldn't notice because she was wearing her apron, but she wasn't wearing a bra, which was why her breasts were bouncing around without the restrictions they usually were under. She was trying to seduce him. Tsunami wasn't a vain woman by any means, but she knew she was very attractive and knew what parts of her that men liked to ogle, though now those were only for her Naruto-kun, and that was all. She had been feeling the need very strongly and wanted satisfaction, but had promised herself she would wait until Naruto was ready. But the more she resisted Naruto, the more he seemed to radiate this aura that made her go weak at the knees. This was why she had decided to try a new approach. Instead of just waiting for Naruto to just do something when he was ready to confront her about it, she would instead tease him in seemingly innocent actions that would send him into a frenzy, which would all but assure her he would jump and ravish her. She shuddered. Just thinking about it made her weak at the knees. "Just my sensei stopping by to give me some news," spoke Naruto, having a hard time not stuttering. He didn't know what it was, but this sensation was causing him to pant slightly. The smell was the cause. It was inhaled through both the mouth and nose, filling his brain full of an arousing substance that caused him to heat up. He didn't know how he knew what it was, how he found out where it was coming from or what it meant, because right now that wasn't important. What was important was tsunami, and this needed to be taken care of immediately. Tsunami didn't know what it was, but all of a sudden she felt like a rabbit being cornered by a fox. It was a sensation that ran up her spine, sending a tingling sensation through her body. Her natural senses picked up something behind her, something with intentions that made her shudder. She felt hands wrap around her and grab her by her large hips. She went to yelp, but she was quickly spun around and a mouth latched onto her own, and a tongue shot out and entered her mouth, licking and moving all over her own. Tsunami went to try and break away, eyes closed from fear. She heard a low growl that somehow she was able to interpret as a "don't you dare" type sound. She opened her eyes, and to her surprise it was Naruto kissing her so rough and passionately. Seeing that it was Naruto, Tsunami quickly returned the hot kiss, gaining an approving growl from Naruto that made Tsunami feel proud of herself. Tsunami was amazed as well as shocked. Naruto seemed to be lost in his lust, and his aura seemed to engulf her, causing her knees to really give out. Tsunami fell to her knees, making her head lower than Naruto, which he took advantage of and completely dominated her mouth. Tsunami wasn't a pro in these types of things, though she did have 2 husbands before Naruto. They were not what you would call love-making masters. They didn't last long, they were far too gentle and passive, or were kind of reclusive and only gave her the bare amount of physical attention. This kiss was something that she had never experienced, but still she was older than he was, more experienced, and yet here she was being completely led by the tongue, by his tongue. Tsunami let out an "AB" sound when she felt something grab hold of her right breast, and could see out of her peripheral vision that Naruto was now gripping her breast and was groping it. She let out a moan as she felt her teeth, her tongue, and her cheeks being licked and covered by Naruto's saliva while her breast was being groped and rubbed by Naruto's possessive hands. Soon both of his hands were playing with her breasts with great enthusiasm, causing Tsunami to moan. Naruto felt like ecstasy was running through his body instead of blood, because the feelings coursing through him were almost too much for him to contain. When he saw Tsunami's fat ass swaying back and forth while she bent over to pick something up, a powerful force that Naruto knew was his animal instincts joining forces with his lust, and hit him. Naruto moved so fast even he was surprised, and when his hands touched her wide baby-bearing hips, he was forced to give in to his baser instincts. He spun Tsunami around and latched onto her mouth and forced his tongue down her throat and began licking all over her mouth, trying to spread his scent all over her as his hands moved up and down her back and arms. When he felt her try and get away from him, he wasn't happy and let out a growl that she seemed to get. When she saw it was him, she instantly returned his kiss, but that wasn't good enough for Naruto. She had tried to defy him, and even if she didn't know it had been him, his instincts wouldn't let this go by, so he dominated her mouth completely, making sure she knew who was in charge here. She was a good girl. She was moaning softly as Naruto's tongue coated her mouth with his saliva when he felt something brush up against the boner in his pants. When he looked down, he saw it had been her giant DD cup breasts brushing against his dick. Naruto smiled and reached down and grasped one with one of his hands, causing Tsunami to gasp. Naruto was having fun with this, and the more he enjoyed it, the animalistic he became. The thought of dominating her and making her his and his alone was such an intoxicating feeling that he had trouble not doing it immediately. As he played with her breasts, he felt her nipples, which were hard, brush up against his palm. Naruto smiled and grabbed onto her other breast with his other hand and continued to fondle them. By now Tsunami was nothing but a moaning pile of goo in his hands. He didn't know why he did it, only that he knew he would get a great sense of satisfaction from it. Naruto simultaneously grabbed hold of Tsunami's nipples with his index and thumbs and twisted them both at once. There was a drop-dead sexy and loud moan that escaped Tsunami's mouth as her eyes became half-lidded and glazed over. That was when Naruto was hit with that scent again, but this time it was about 100 times more powerful. Naruto was curious and pushed Tsunami on her back, though she didn't resist in the slightest and was on her back, legs twitching, and a puddle of juices surrounding her for the entire world to see, in an instant. Naruto leaned down and sniffed the puddle and then Tsunami's woman hood before standing up with a serious look in his eyes. This wasn't the serious "I am going to war" look. No, this was the "I must do this" look. The smell was amazing, like a drug that you just couldn't describe how amazing the trip was, and he knew what it meant. The scent was of arousal, but the scent also had a second part to it that caused the serious look in Naruto's face. The other part was the smell of a fertile woman, whose body was begging and pleading to be mounted and impregnated. And Naruto, in his unique state of mind, didn't care about anything else. She was his as far as his instincts were concerned, so the only one who could impregnate her was him. The mere thought of impregnating Tsunami was orgasmic. It was the ultimate act of claiming someone as your own. Your scent and your essence were sent into that person's very being, claiming them in their deepest parts. Tsunami had been claimed before, but they had been weak and as a result had died. Naruto wasn't weak and he would prove it. "Oh Naruto, you're amazing," spoke Tsunami with a glazed look in her eyes, as she got back on her knees and looked up at Naruto with a smile on her glistening face. "That was the most mind-numbing orgasm I ever had," spoke Tsunami, not being able to tell the change in Naruto's demeanor, just the overwhelming pleasure running through her body. "Pleasure me," spoke Naruto in a commanding voice that sent pleasurable sensations down Tsunami's spine and straight into her longing womb. She deftly grabbed at Naruto's pants and started to undo and unzip them until her prize came out that caused her eyes to go wide. Staring her in the eyes was a giant cock, roughly 9 inches long and too fat for her hand to wrap around, with thick menacing blood vessels on it. It was pulsating and already had some pre-cum dripping out of the end that looked about as big around as the end of her pinky. It was menacing, but she wanted it. She slowly stuck out her tongue and gently licked the head of Naruto's cock, tasting his sweet seed as she swished it around in her mouth a few times before she swallowed. "Stop teasing me," groused out Naruto as he restrained himself. He wanted to bend Tsunami over that instant, but he wanted to wait. There was something telling him that these things had to be taken slow at first or something would go wrong if you just tried to shove it in like the animal he felt he was. Tsunami nodded her head and opened her mouth as wide as she could. Her jaw actually hurt a small bit from being stretched further than she had even needed to go. She felt the large pulsating object enter her mouth and then push up against her cheek, causing it to push out. Thick globs of cum dribbled out of Naruto's cock and Tsunami happily drank it. Tsunami had only tried giving head once before and it was more awkward than anything, but now when both of them had been taken over by their lust and driven by a power greater than them made things like awkwardness irrelevant. Tsunami slowly pulled her head back, feeling the skin and thick blood vessels drag across her tongue, her cheeks, and the roof of her mouth, causing it to tingle and vibrate around her brain. When it was almost all the way out, she lunged forward, taking 5 inches into her mouth, feeling the large bulbous head press against the side of her face, dragging the skin back to where the cock could be seen pressing against her cheek. The vibrations were intense, and the feeling of satisfaction she got seeing Naruto's face contorted in pleasure as his leg began to shake a bit was pure bliss. While the cock was pressed against her cheek, she began to lick up and down his shaft, pressing her tongue against it firmly, hoping the taste and texture would never leave her. Naruto groaned, feeling Tsunami sucking up off and then alternating to long sensual licks that made his balls twitch. She continued sucking his cock with great vigor, moving her head up and down while rotating her tongue around the sides. "Stroke it as well," spoke Naruto as he rested his hand on the top of her head, getting a good handful of her hair. She looked up at him with those glazed-over brown eyes and nodded her head a bit. She pulled Naruto's cock out of her mouth, making Naruto groan in disappointment. But then she grabbed his cock and began to stroke him up and down, making sure his entire cock was coated in her saliva, before reinserting her favorite piece of meat back into her mouth, and then stroking off the parts that she couldn't fit into her mouth with her hands. Naruto was in pure bliss. The pleasure was so great and it felt like electricity was rocketing through his body. A new sensation pressed against his mind and his balls started to tighten instantly. Naruto tensed up, trying to hold back his load, but that was impossible. "I am gonna come. Where do you want it?" shouted Naruto, trying to hold back as much as possible, though he knew it to be a fruitless endeavor. "I don't care, Naruto-sama," shouted Tsunami, as she went back to feverishly trying to satisfy Naruto. What she didn't know was by calling Naruto-sama had sent him over the edge. Naruto pulled back, pulling his cock out of Tsunami's hands, and started to feverishly stroke his cock. It only took a moment for a water hose effect to happen, but instead of water, thick pungent smelling cum shot out, covering Tsunami like winter snow. Naruto had never felt as satisfied in his life, while Tsunami reveled in Naruto's thick cum that covered her body. She looked down and saw that her entire chest, stomach, arms, some got on her legs, and she was sure her face had a thick layer just like her hair. She stuck her tongue out and began licking cum off in big tongue full, trying to get as much of Naruto's cum down her throat. Naruto got hard as soon as he saw how much Tsunami enjoyed eating his cum and began to wonder what she tasted like. Tsunami was surprised when Naruto picked her up by the undersides of her arms and then turned her around. She went back to look at Naruto, but he pushed her by the back, causing her to fall over a footrest. She looked back and saw that now her big butt was sticking straight up in the air for Naruto to see. Seeing the beautiful black lace panties Tsunami had on under her dress made Naruto's cock hurt and twitch. He wanted it and he wanted it now, but the logical part of his mind that was still holding on by a thread told him that he should return the favor Tsunami had given him. Naruto agreed with it and walked up behind Tsunami. When Naruto got behind Tsunami, he took a big whiff of her womanhood and felt his cock twitch again. He slowly pulled down her panties that were completely soaking wet, revealing a smooth pussy with beautiful pink lips that was practically gushing fluids. Naruto stuck out his tongue and gave her one long teasing lick like she had done to him, causing her to moan and then begin to wiggle her ass as if begging for more. Naruto smacked that beautiful round thing, causing it to jiggle and her to moan cutely before he got back down and began to eat her out. Tsunami was moaning such a sexy moan. Naruto started off by licking the sides and then working to the insides. Her quacking body was amazing to behold beneath him. Naruto stuck his tongue even deeper into her, causing her to gasp. It was ribbed on the inside of her pussy, which massaged his tongue. Naruto loved the feeling and went back to licking it as much as possible. Tsunami was practically vibrating. Naruto's tongue was licking inside of her, sending pleasure down the sides of her legs and up her back. He had started with the outside, which was amazing, and when he would move on to the other side, the cool feeling of his absence would also send pleasure up her body as well, causing dual sensations to mix together, bringing on her orgasm faster. "Oh, Naruto-sama, I am coming," shouted Tsunami as she gushed all over Naruto's face. Naruto lapped up the fluids like a dog and continued licking her. "Oh, Naruto-sama, don't. I am so sensitive right now," spoke Tsunami. But then something happened that caused her mind to flash white. As Naruto was licking Tsunami's pussy after she came, he noticed something that he hadn't when he first started to eat her out. A small nub had begun to stick out at the front of Tsunami's pussy, and Naruto didn't know what it was. He reached out and grabbed it, but instantly Tsunami's body tensed. Her giant butt cheeks clamped together with his face in between them. Not that he minded, and then he heard Tsunami moan so loudly and he body shake so powerfully that he was sure his entire clan compound was visibly shaking as well. After that, Tsunami's body went limp and she fell down completely on the footrest. Naruto looked down and saw a stupid sex face on Tsunami's face. She was babbling about something about a sex god, but Naruto ignored her. He had waited for too long and now he was ready for the main event. Stepping back to get a good look at his prey, Naruto could feel the approval his animal instincts were supplying him. Looking down at that which he was about to conquer was nothing short of beautiful. Tsunami's giant breasts were squashed underneath her ecstasy-contorted face like beautiful squishy pillows. Her body was covered in sweat and his cum giving him a large sense of pride. Her hair was a mess and her face was stuck in "I just got fucked" stupid mode as she continued to babble. But by far the best was what was saved for last. Her ass was angled perfectly, pointing up at a 90-degree angle, and her lovely giant ass cheeks were spread apart because of her body going limp to reveal her puckered ass hole and her salivating pussy. It was so beautiful and enticing that Naruto just couldn't wait any longer. Naruto got behind her and put his cock up against her smooth pussy lips and slowly began to push deep into her. Tsunami seemed to snap out of her sex-induced coma and looked back at him with shocked yet excited eyes. Their eyes locked and they were no longer Tsunami and Naruto. Hell, they weren't even man and woman. They were just two animals who were in desperate need of a good fuck. Naruto kept pushing harder and harder into Tsunami, causing her to moan and buck her hips, which only made Naruto happier. Naruto reached back and smacked Tsunami on the ass, causing it to jiggle and her to moan. Naruto pulled back a bit, giving Tsunami's pussy a chance to breathe before Naruto went straight back on the attack. "Oh Naruto-sama, you're stretching me past my limits," shouted Tsunami as Naruto continued to try to bury his cock inside of her pussy. She was positive he would reach the end. There was no way it wouldn't. Naruto's cock made her feel like a virgin again, as there was no other way to explain the pain and the pleasure that came with it. Naruto kept pushing his cock further and further into Tsunami's pussy. Her insides were so hot and slippery, yet even still she was so tight. Naruto was about 6 inches inside of her and began to rock his cock back and forth, pushing the tip a tiny bit further into her pussy with each thrust. The tempo had been established, but for Tsunami it was like a beat. Every time Naruto would pull out, electricity would run through her lower back and down her legs, causing them to go weak and her pussy to gush even more fluids onto the floor and down her legs. She was so happy that she wasn't standing, because she knew for a fact she would have fallen down. But when Naruto slammed back into her, it was like a gong. It was like her head was a thick bell and Naruto's cock was a giant mallet, and when he hit her bell with his cock, her entire skull would vibrate, and other things like sound, smell, sight would leave her momentarily, only to come back as Naruto was pulling out of her. Naruto was in heaven. He had reached his equilibrium, or his perfect balance, as you will. He and Tsunami were the perfect instruments, slamming into one another to create beautiful music that echoed through the halls and seemed to bring peace and balance back into the world, though the beautiful music they were making. But like all things, something had to give. Naruto could feel his second orgasm coming on. It made his balls turn again, producing more sperm for their goal. Naruto's instincts, his animal mind, was ready for this. This had been the goal, and he was finally ready for his reward. Naruto quickly started to pick up his tempo, smashing the head of his cock into her pesky cervix that had kept him from putting all of his cock inside of her. Tsunami never thought it would be possible to die via sex. It was more of a joke than anything else until today. Now she actually questioned whether or not you could die from sex. Naruto had been making her climax constantly non-stop for the past 30 minutes. When he had finally got to the end of the rabbit hole and ran into her cervix, she had already been in a near so lost in her pleasure she was losing touch with reality. But then Naruto slammed his large bulbous head into her cervix, trying to beat it down so he could go even further. It was like her very spirit had been knocked out of her body. She felt like she was only partially in her body and that she was floating in a state of pure bliss. She knew Naruto was still ramming into her, repeatedly smashing into her cervix, trying to get to that last stretch before he gained what he wanted. That is when she heard it and was all of a sudden back in her body. "I am coming," shouted Naruto as he pulled back, grabbed hold of her hips as hard as he could, and then rammed his cock inside of her as hard as he could. He felt her cervix give up. It would have protected her from any other man on the planet, but not from Naruto. Oh no. Naruto was not just man, but also beast, and he would not be defeated when it came to sex. When the cervix was knocked aside, Naruto's cock rushed forwards and filled up Tsunami's womb completely. There were no words that could describe the pleasure running through Naruto's veins. It was something he would probably do anything to feel again, but that didn't matter right now. He had reached his finish line. His body was in a state or nirvana, and now for the final act. Thick, continuous streams of cum raced out of Naruto's cock straight into Tsunami's pussy, causing it to quake with pleasure. The amount of cum Naruto unleashed inside of her was mind-boggling. But he soon realized there wasn't enough room inside of Tsunami's womb, and soon it rushed out and sprayed all over the inside of Tsunami's legs and butt, and continued to leak out, causing puddles to form beneath them. Tsunami had passed out quite a few times, but Naruto had woken her up from his ministrations. But now that would be impossible, as her eyes nearly disappeared into her eyes right before she passed out. Lemon scene over. Naruto was in so much pleasure it was indescribable. He looked down at his handiwork and smiled. He quickly picked Tsunami up and walked them to his bedroom, where he laid her down beside him right before he fell asleep. Somewhere else. One troubled soul wasn't having as much fun as Naruto and Tsunami. Anko had barricaded herself inside of her spare room in Karinia's apartment ever since Naruto had brought that wave slut home with him. All she had done was get drunk, cry, fall asleep, wake up, get dressed, go to work, torture some unlucky fool far past his or her breaking point, go home and repeat the process. Karinia had tried to help, but nothing she had said had helped. She had considered going to Naruto's house and confronting him, But Technique Naruto was the clan head of the Uzumaki clan, and although he wasn't old enough to vote on the council, he still had many rights and powers others didn't. So she decided to talk to someone who she knew had great power and wisdom, someone she had talked to about things she wouldn't dream of telling anyone else, the Hokage. He didn't seem shocked at all when she told him of the predicament. He was someone everyone trusted, and he helped many people with their troubles, especially Anko, so he knew a lot about them and could predict to a limited degree how they would react in certain situations. Apparently, he had guessed Anko wouldn't take the idea of Naruto having more than one woman. When Kurinya asked about what he had meant about the more than one woman bit, the Hokage went into the big spill about clans' rights when they were close to extinction. She hadn't known about the CRA but had to admit it made sense. Even if she didn't like it. It made sense, really. Anko had been alone for so long, because of her connection to Orochimaru, which was something the people feared, a fear that seemed to have partially rubbed off on Anko. She and Naruto were a lot alike, but with Naruto being able, or more specifically being asked to take on more than one woman to restart the Uzumaki clan within Konoha, Anko must have felt threatened. Anko probably felt that she would be replaced or forgotten by Naruto, something she couldn't possibly handle again. "Anko, if you don't come out of there right now, I am going to go tell Naruto where you are," shouted Kurinya. But then the door blasted off the hinges, sending the door and Kurinya flying. "Don't you dare," shouted Anko, half drunk and the other half a sleep-deprived mess. "Anko, you have to talk to him. If not, this pain in your heart will never go away," spoke Kurinya, getting up off the ground while trying to help her friend out. "Why? He obviously already has someone, so why would he need me?" asked Anko, tear flowing down her face as she shifted side from side in a drunken stupor. "You and I both know of Naruto being in the CRA. He didn't ask to repopulate his clan, but it is something that probably means the world to him. I saw the way you two were together, all smiles, laughing all the time, and holding hands in such tender ways made me so jealous. I couldn't find someone like that for me. And beside, if you stay here, then that means she will have Naruto all to herself, and even though I know Naruto loves you, he won't wait forever. He once told me he wanted you to always be his number one. I think I now see he was referencing to the number one woman in his life, his closest soulmate, his first wife," spoke Kurinya with a tender tone. But when she said wife, the drunken glazed look in Anko's eyes lifted, revealing a shocked Anko with even more tears running down her face. "I can't believe how foolish I have been. I have to tell him how I feel," shouted Anko as she kinda stumbled towards the door. Kurinya caught her and pulled her back into the house. "Oh no, you don't, Missy. You're gonna get cleaned up, you're gonna be sober when this magical moment happens, and you aren't gonna look like you just walked off the streets," spoke Kurinya as she dragged a kicking and screaming Anko into the restroom. It was time for a real makeover, and she was gonna need a lot of makeup to make this pig look beautiful. Naruto's Earth Grudge Fear Chapter 5. Naruto was practicing a new technique he had come up for his Kinjutsu and thinking about his morning. It was awesome. Hands down the best morning he had ever had. When he had woken up, he felt 10 pounds lighter, and so relaxed. He slowly got up and looked around, only to feel someone on his arm. When he looked to see what it was, he nearly jumped out of his skin. It was Tsunami, and she looked like she had just entered heaven. Her face was contorted to form an expression of ecstasy that seemed to be frozen on her face. Her face also was coated in patches of hard white patches, and her body would twitch from time to time. Naruto tried to remember the awesome head she had given him last night and how he gave her a cum shower. It was awesome. Naruto made a shadow clone to start making breakfast while he snuck out to clear his head with some training, so he didn't wake up Tsunami just to ravish her again. Naruto did feel guilty. He had taken Tsunami to his bed, and yet he still felt Anko should have been the one he held first. He shook his head, trying to get rid of those negative thoughts. Anko was gone, and no matter what he did, he couldn't find her. She was really good at hiding when she wanted to be, and since he wasn't allowed in TNI, he couldn't get to her when she was at work. "Well, at least I am getting better with water release," spoke Naruto as he looked out at the pond he was training beside and began going through hand signs. "Water style, water clone jutsu," shouted Naruto. Instantly the water in the pond rose up and contorted into a human shape before facial features and color appeared on it. "I didn't know you knew water release," came an uncomfortable voice from behind Naruto. Naruto was so shocked that the water clone fell apart and turned back into water. Naruto slowly turned around and was shocked at what he saw. Standing there was Anko, but there was something off about her. Her eyes had small bags around them, her skin was a lot paler than he remembered it to be, but her eyes were the worst. They were so full of sadness that it nearly broke Naruto's heart. Anko-chan asked Naruto with a wavering voice. He had missed her, that wasn't a secret, but he couldn't imagine what had happened to her to make her look like that. Her eyes started to water up. He had called her Anko-chan, and she felt so happy. She had thought Naruto wouldn't want anything to do with her. She went to say something, but her voice failed her. She felt she was gonna flake and knew it was now or never. She had to do something or she wouldn't ever have the nerve to even look at him again. Anko ran forward at speeds that Naruto wouldn't have ever been able to see and grabbed Naruto. Naruto was shocked, but when Anko's lips smashed into his, the shock increased tenfold. Wasn't she mad at him? If so, then why was she kissing him? Naruto didn't even care anymore. All he knew was he had his Anko-chan at least for another few minutes. So he grabbed her hips and pulled her in even closer and returned the kiss tenfold. Anko was so happy she could die. Naruto was actually kissing her back with so much passion and wasn't trying to get her to go away. When she felt his tongue brush against her teeth, she opened her mouth instantly to let him in. Her mind began to melt as Naruto's tongue shot into her mouth and began tasting and licking her all over. They stayed like that for 20 minutes, just kissing and lightly groping one another, letting their feeling pass between one another. When they finally broke their kiss, they pulled back and savored the feelings that were still tingling inside of them. They slowly opened their eyes and looked into each other's. They could see the love, lust, and other emotions of the other and couldn't be happier. "I am sorry about what I did," spoke Naruto in a small voice. He was sorry that he hadn't informed Anko somehow about Tsunami before just waltzing into the village with her hugging up on his arm. He didn't think about Anko's feeling or even what others may say about her with her boyfriend having another woman holding his arm like that. "Naruto-kun, you don't have anything to apologize for. I am the one who freaked out on you without even thinking. I knew you would have other women besides me. But when I saw her, I saw how pretty she was and was scared you would love her more than me. I was angry and scared, but I shouldn't have done those things. Can you forgive me?" asked Anko as she and Naruto held hands. His hand was so strong and felt so good in her hands that she never wanted to let it go. Naruto leaned in and kissed Anko on the lips, a kiss she happily returned. After they broke apart, Naruto looked into her eyes and said, "Nobody could ever take your place in my heart. I love you, Anko-chan, never think otherwise or else you be wrong. I want you to be by my side forever, as my best friend, my girlfriend, my lover, and defiantly one day to be my wife and the mother of my children." Anko's eyes truly let the tears fall after hearing that, and leaned in and hissed Naruto, trying to show him just how much she loved him by passing all of her love and affection through that kiss. "I would love to," spoke Anko as she rested her head on Naruto's shoulder. Back at the Uzumaki clan compound, as Tsunami started to wake up, she felt a hot, powerful, pleasurable sensation shoot up her back and down her legs. The sensation was powerful and filled her head like electricity rushing through water. She let out a lone moan and looked around, trying to find her Naruto-kun. She couldn't believe they had done all that last night. "Naruto-kun is such an animal," thought Tsunami as she tried to get out of bed. When she tried to move her legs, they twitched a bit and pleasure shot out of her body again. But they didn't move. She started to get worried and started to shout for Naruto. "What is it?" shouted Naruto as he ran into the room, seeing Tsunami looking worried. He saw the scared look on her face and ran up to her as fast as he could. He smiled when he saw the smile on her face when she saw him. "Naruto-kun, I can't move my legs again, and when I try to, that great feeling shoots up through my body," spoke Tsunami with a glazed look at the end of it. Naruto started to laugh. Tsunami didn't get what was so funny. "Why are you laughing?" demanded Tsunami with a cute pout. "Tsunami-chan, what did you do last night?" spoke Naruto with a grin on his face. Tsunami's face went bright red, and she put her hands on the sides of her face. But the trail of blood coming out of her nose and the giggling sound told Naruto she wasn't upset at all. "You," was all Tsunami said as her mind went through all of the things that they had done last night, and every night that month. She still couldn't believe Naruto had been that much of a beast in bed, and he was right. She wouldn't ever be able to be satisfied by any other man ever again. Exactly, so now your body is still in shock and is kind of locked up a bit. It will take a while before you will be able to walk from the activities last night, but I will get you some painkillers to numb the sensation and some other medicine to help you recover fast, spoke Naruto as he started to get up, but Tsunami's hand grabbed his, locking him in place. Will you stay with me until I am better? Asked Tsunami with puppy dog eyes. Naruto smiled a bit and nodded his head before he leaned down and kissed her passionately. Let me go grab your medicine and your breakfast, then I will nurse you back to health. After all, I am the reason you are there in the first place, spoke Naruto with a seductive wink that caused Tsunami to blush even harder. Yip is a keeper, and even if he wasn't, that thing between his legs would be plenty enough reason to stay, thought Tsunami with a perverted giggle as she relived last night with memories. She reached down momentarily and felt her lower stomach where her womb was and could feel how firm it was. She moved her upper body around a bit and could feel all of the sloshing going on inside of it. Her womb was absolutely full of Naruto's cum, and she couldn't be happier. She quickly laid back down and passed out. Naruto's clone just shook his head. It was like this every day. She just wanted Naruto to watch over her and stay by her side and then tease him until he banged her to sleep. With the Hokage. The Hokage was looking at the people in his office, but his mind was somewhere else. He was so proud of Naruto, especially these past few years. He had gotten so strong that it was amazing for one so young. He was sure Naruto's parents and ancestors would be proud of him for all of his accomplishments. He had also been able to save a dying clan and bring the last living member her to Konoha, and even convince him to join them. The Hokage had been skeptical at first. Who wouldn't? But he valued Naruto's choices highly and decided to give the boy a chance. The boy had agreed to recreating the Yuki clan here in Konoha and signed the CRA so he could quickly restart his clan. Sarutobi wasn't fooled for a second and grinned when Naruto told him he wanted to build Haku's clan compound close to his own. It was a swift and powerful move for the future. After all, the Yuki clan was both famous and powerful, and Naruto making friends with the last one was a great way to create a long-term alliance between their clans. Sarutobi had thought it was a great idea that Naruto had come up with to make the Earth Grudge Fear a clan technique, since only a rare few could actually survive the process that were not of Uzumaki decent, and even the ones that did survive would be horribly disfigured. This would keep others from trying to steal their clan's Kinjutsu/hidden techniques, and promote the Uzumaki clan's fame and abilities. Naruto had explained that with the Uzumaki clan's abilities, like being prodigies in Kinjutsu and Fuinjutsu for close range and supplementary skills, and their healing and life force, would work great with the Earth Grudge Fear's increased strength, ninjutsu performance, and healing/lifeline capabilities. Naruto believed that this was the thing that would help re-establish the Uzumaki clan for sure. Of course, Naruto also got to live every man's dream in having multiple wives. The Hokage could only imagine the kinky things Naruto would start doing with the women that he eventually would settle down with in the future in the bedroom. He knew the boy had Anko, though that was a rough patch, and now he had the civilian Tsunami, very beautiful and sweet, though the civilian part did surprise the old man. But he figured Naruto probably wanted a woman who wasn't a ninja. After all, someone had to stay at home and watch the kids, and if all of his wives were ninja, then either some of them would have to quit or they would have to alternate, both having their disadvantages. The Hokage did wonder just how many wives Naruto would get, and for that matter, how many children he would have. All clans had at least 100 members, and those were the small clans. The large clans like the Hyuga and Aburame had closer to 1,000 members apiece, so Naruto would have to have quite a lot if he wanted to make his clan grow. They would certainly have the power and fame for it if Naruto was able to accomplish his dream of becoming Hokage, which wasn't impossible with the way the boy was growing stronger every day. Hokage-sama, you're spacing out, spoke someone from in front of the Hokage. Hiruzen shook his head, snapping back to reality, and looked in front of him to see Kurinya Yuhi, the one who had snapped him back to reality. Kurinya was unique in the Hokage's opinion, and while it wasn't bad, it wasn't that great either. She was a skilled ninja, don't get him wrong, but she wasn't as good as she seemed to think she was, which wasn't a good thing to be when you were a ninja. She was Konoha's genjutsu mistress, which was great, but unfortunately that was about all she had going or her. Against a Hyuga or an Uchiha, she wouldn't even buy his Chunin. She focused on genjutsu far too much in the Hokage's opinion, which made her suffer in other areas. She was fair enough, but she didn't excel at anything besides Kinjutsu, which could be devastating if that were to be nullified. A good ninja should excel in at least 2 fields in case one is rendered useless. If she would just learn the sword from her friend Yugao, some ninjutsu from Anko, or some other less-known skill from someone else, she would be golden. But sadly, that didn't seem to be happening anytime soon. She was also the object of his son's affection. Not that it seemed to be returned, but the boy was constant. The Hokage would give him that. Karinia didn't seem to like smoking, which was something all Sarutobi did. She was also kind of a man-hater, only tolerating Naruto because he was Anko's boyfriend, but other than that she seemed to avoid men altogether. Sarutobi really wished his son would pick someone else. The Sarutobi clan needed an heir soon, and if he and his son died, then the clan head would become Sarutobi's childish grandson, which would be a disaster. The boy was a good kid at heart, but childish and a bit spoiled. If he became clan head, he would get a giant head and start ordering ridiculous things to the rest of the clan. They would take it for a limited time because he would be clan head and the grandson of their greatest member who was an ex-Hokage, but they were ninja, and if something doesn't work and was leading them down the path of destruction, they would remove it. That would also lead to in-clan fighting and so much more. Worst case scenario, the Sarutobi clan destroys itself or is rendered a lesser clan because of all the power they would lose. Oh yes, sorry about that, long day. Anyways, the reason that I have called all of you here. But then the Hokage stopped as he looked around the room. He noticed Anko wasn't there, which was surprising since she respected him for all that he had done for her. Where is Anko Mitarashi? Asked the Hokage. It was Karinia who stepped forward. May I tell it to you in secret, Hokage-sama? It is kind of personal. The Hokage nodded and ushered her towards him. She walked up to him, leaned forward and whispered in his ear. She went to make up with Naruto. They have been fighting all month, but I think she has finally understood what she truly wants, so I don't think she will make the meeting, Hokage-sama, whispered Karinia, making sure nobody else could hear her. Do you think they will make it? Asked the Hokage. Honestly, this was much more interesting than what he had called them all in for. Naruto was like a son to him, and his happiness meant a lot to him. Karinia seemed to have debated internally before sighing. I think she will make up with him. She loves him deeply, which is the only reason I didn't tell her to drop him like a sack of potatoes, as well as because Naruto is actually one of the few good men I have met before. I know about his situation and all, but I still hate that my friend will have to share the man that she loves, spoke Karinia with a tired face. It seemed that she had debated this for a long time. Karinia, I know that is not any of my business, but I know how lonely you are. You honestly do not want Naruto and Anko to be so close because you're scared that she will stop hanging out with you to be with him. You don't want Anko to move out of your place, but I do want you to know this. Naruto is a very good guy. You could not ask for a better man for Anko. She has had a tough life and deserves this happiness, spoke the Hokage with a serious face. Karinia looked down and nodded slowly, but to her shock the Hokage smiled a bit and a twinkle in his eye formed. But if you were worried about her or if you were scared of losing your friendship with Anko, then why don't you consider Naruto as a possible suitor? Asked the Hokage. Karinia's face went beet red and she started to babble. Hokage-sama, I will not be a trophy wife, nor will I share my husband with any other woman regardless of who he is or how good he is to me, spoke Karinia with a fierce look in her eyes. Ah, she was the epitome of the typical man-hater. The Hokage smiled, but the gleam didn't go away. You could give dating him a try though, couldn't you? What would be the harm? I am not saying you should sleep together, but Naruto has a very large compound filled with anything you could ever need. So why not give it a trial run? Asked the Hokage. He wanted Naruto to quickly fill up his clan compound and start recreating the Uzumaki clan. The Hokage didn't like to think about it, but Naruto could die, and if he did, then all opportunities of restarting the Uzumaki clan would die with him. Plus, he would lose someone he loved deeply. If he had a house full of beautiful women, then the possibilities of him impregnating one was much more possible. So the Uzumaki clan wouldn't go extinct if Naruto were to die. Karinia looked at him confused. What do you mean, trial run, Hokage-sama? She hadn't ever heard of a dating trial run, so maybe it was some deep wisdom that the Hokage had collected during his long life. The Hokage smirked. You could call it dating, but you will be living with him, Anko, and Tsunami. That way you can see how they interact with one another and see how he treats them. You might find out it isn't as bad as your imagination has led it to believe, spoke the Hokage with a shrug of the shoulders. Karinia went to say something with a blush on her face, but she didn't seem quite ready to give in, so he used his last trump card. Plus you would get to see and talk with Anko every day just like it was when she lived with you. Besides, just imagine how happy Anko would be if you both started dating Naruto. Wouldn't she want you to be with Naruto besides some random woman he meet who probably just wanted him because of his clan head status? Karinia seemed to freeze for a moment. The Hokage did feel a bit of guilt manipulating her delicate friendship with Anko, but he knew it would not only help her, but so many others if she would just agree. It was a proven fact that strong parents made strong children, and that would continue on through the generations, increasing a clan's power. That power would be used to protect the individual, the clan, and Konoha, a win-win in the Hokage's opinion. I guess I could give it some consideration, was all Karinia said as she pulled back and walked over to the other jonin who were looking at her funny. The Hokage smiled victoriously, but quickly went back to Hokage mode, so they could move on with the meeting. Hihim, please excuse that, spoke the Hokage as he pulled out a stack of papers and put it in front of them. Now you have all handed in the paperwork that stated that you all wish for your teams to enter. That is all right, but I do want to warn you all. If your teams perform poorly, then it will reflect on you and will be put on your profiles, so I ask again, who here thinks their teams are ready for the Chunin exams? Asked the Hokage with a serious look on his face. A few no-name shinobi walked forward and withdrew their permission slips, while most of them remained steadfast, sure that their teams would prove themselves. Hokage-sama, if I may, spoke Kakashi as he stepped forward. The Hokage nodded his head for Kakashi to speak. While I know that Naruto is powerful and has been trained by a great ninja, do you really think that it would be wise for Naruto to participate in the Chunin exams by himself? It is not that it has not happened in the past, but most of the ninja who do so are singled out by the others as easy targets, or by the team sensei who see the child as a possible threat in the future, many times ending up dead, spoke Kakashi even though he was still reading his porno. While I do agree that sending one-man teams into the Chunin exams is unwise, I do have to admit that I do believe that Naruto is an exception to this rule. With his sensei, who happens to be a former ANBU captain like your Kakashi, Naruto has already completed 47C ranked missions, 32B ranked missions, 6A ranked missions, and 1 classified S ranked mission, making me believe that Naruto will be more than capable of handling himself in the Chunin exams. He is on the fast track to becoming an ANBU, and would already be one if he had accepted my offer, but he seems to want to stay in the public eye as much as possible and rake in as much fame for his future clan as he possibly can. Also, to become Hokage, you need both strength and the backing of the people. If nobody has ever even heard of you, then how can you expect them to follow you? Spoke the Hokage as he took a puff of his pipe and looked over at all the shocked faces of the other ninja in the room. This made the Hokage smile, knowing that Naruto and Yamato had been doing missions back-to-back without stopping for a while now. Kakashi stepped back, obviously having nothing else to say. The other ninja looked around, looking like they wanted to say something but just couldn't. One by one, other ninja stepped forward and took the permission slips from the Hokage and went back, not looking anyone in the eyes. Some of them decided to let their students go on, but they still seemed worried. The only people who seemed to still have confidence were the sensei of the newest generation of ninja and Mighty Guy. No surprise there. The Hokage didn't say anything about this and acted like it didn't happen. Now the Chunin exam will start in a month, so make sure your teams are ready. It will be held here in Konoha, so we should have the home field advantage, but don't let that get to anyone's heads. Even though it is here in Konoha, it is still just as dangerous as it would be anywhere else, only with an added risk, spoke the Hokage, now getting confused looks from many of the other ninja. Should a large number of foreign ninja advance into the finals and only a small number of Konoha ninja make it, we will look twice as bad because it was here in our own village. This will cause others to view us as weak and our clientele will drop as well. We may have the home field advantage, but we have the most to lose. Dismissed, shouted the Hokage, causing all the other ninja to disappear instantly. The Hokage sat down and pulled out his Aika Paradise book and started to read it. He wasn't worried too much about the Chunin exams. True, there was lots of talented ninja entering the village, and from their spies they learned that their allies were sending some of the best talent they have had in years to the Chunin exams, but he had faith in his ninja and in Naruto, of course, to keep the image of Konoha going strong. With Naruto. Naruto was still sitting up in the forest, beside the small pond he had found, thinking about the conversation he and Anko had recently had. They were back together, which made Naruto smile, but then he had to tell her about him no longer being a virgin and the night he had with Tsunami, which pissed Anko off, but she forgave him seeing how sad he was and told him that she actually agreed with how things had happened. Naruto had been confused because he was sure that she would be pissed, but Anko explained that the chances of him falling for another civilian was very low, while him having more ninja wives was very high. So instead of having the ninja wives fighting over who would be the technical matriarch of the Uzumaki clan, they would just let Tsunami have the title because it would give her credibility with the ninja, something that Anko was sure any woman of Naruto wouldn't need. She also told him that she would give him something special if he agreed to one day marry her. Naruto would have agreed anyways, but that something special sounded too good to pass up. He knew things would be strange around his house for a while, with Tsunami still recovering from their lovemaking, Anko now living with them, and the strange relationship that they now would have, but he knew that things would work out. He loved Anko with all of his heart, and Tsunami held a special place in his heart that had only gotten bigger after she took his virginity. Well, I might as well get back to training. The Chunin exams are in 1 month and I want to have mastered water release by then. If I can do that and incorporate it into my special technique, then I will seriously be the man, spoke Naruto as he puffed up his chest and went back to training. Alright, I got a crapload of water jutsu from the Uzumaki library, though most of them were only wind and water jutsu, which I will have to rectify later, though the water jutsu will come in handy now, spoke Naruto, thinking of ways to improve his clan. He wanted everything to be perfect so when he had kids they would have the highest possibility of surviving. Just the thought of his children dying broke Naruto's heart. Water style. Pressurized water, shouted Naruto as he puckered up his lips, causing only a tiny hole to be left open before his cheeks bulged out and a powerful thin beam of water shot out of his mouth. The beam cut through anything that it came in contact with, but stopped when Naruto's cheeks had deflated. Good, looks like I have that jutsu down pat, spoke Naruto, giving himself a pat on the back. 4 hours later at the Uzumaki clan compound. Lemon scene. As Naruto entered his house, he was tackled to the ground by Anko, whose breasts were smashed into his face. Naruto returned the hug, feeling Anko's curvy waist, and decided to have a bit of fun and smacked her big ass one good time, causing it to shake. Naruto was very happy with himself, and even happier with the EP sound Anko made. Oh, you're such a bad man doing that to such a delicate woman, spoke Anko as she placed her hand on one cheek and acted as if she were shy. It was kind of funny because Naruto's back was on the floor and she was straddled his waist and slowly, but he was sure she knew what she was doing, grinded on his manhood. Oh, if you are a delicate flower, then I will just have to corrupt you, spoke Naruto with a grin as he leaned up and captured Anko's lips with his own. They made out right then and there on Naruto's porch, not even trying to hide the moans they were making or the fact that their tongues were in each other's mouths. Naruto had to admit Anko was far more aggressive when kissing and put up a better fight than Tsunami, but eventually he wore her down and dominated her tongue and mouth with his own. Hey, what about me? Came a beautiful yet whiny voice from behind Anko. When they broke of their kiss, Naruto looked behind Anko and saw it was Tsunami, though her legs looked like they were just able to support her. Oh, I am so sorry, honey, spoke Naruto with a sensual tone as he got up and walked over to Tsunami and gave her a breathtaking kiss. She already knew who was in charge. He and her mouth and tongue instantly submitted to his own. He also reached around her and grabbed her big juicy ass with his hand and began to grope and fondle it, causing Tsunami to moan into his mouth. Who is my bad girl? Asked Naruto. I am, whispered Tsunami with a blush on her face. Naruto smirked, but it wasn't good enough for him. He slid his hand into Tsunami's pants and gently rubbed her back door with his middle finger, causing her to EP and moan at the same time. I didn't hear you, spoke Naruto, having fun teasing her. I said I am your bad girl, Naruto-sama. So please correct me, spoke Tsunami in a clear tone that was full of lust and want, and her breathing started to get heavy. Then go to our room and get ready for a night that you will never forget, spoke Naruto, seeing the smile on her face. She quickly made her way towards their room, determined to get pounded like she had last night. Naruto looked back at Anko, who looked a bit shocked. "You don't have to join us if you are not ready, or even if you don't want to," spoke Naruto as he leaned in to whisper in Anko's ear. "But I promise you will not regret it, and will never forget it." Lemon scene. Anko's eyes were filled with pure lust as she deftly nodded her head. Naruto smiled and took her by the arm and led her to his bedroom. On the way, he moved his arm to her backside and started to fondle and grope it, causing Anko's face to turn red, though she did seem to get into it as she started to lick and nibble on his ear. When they got to Naruto's bedroom, they saw Tsunami dressed in nothing but black laced panties and a bra that only covered her nipples. Naruto motioned for her to come over to him, and she did as she was told. Naruto's other hand pulled her into his side and reached around and started to fondle her breast and pinch her nipples. "Anko, why don't you give me a little show while I get Tsunami-chan here ready?" spoke Naruto as he reluctantly let go of Anko's soft ass. Anko deftly nodded her head and walked to the center of the room. Naruto grabbed a chair and sat in it while Tsunami sat in his lap. One hand was fondling her breast while the other hand was inside of her panties, loosening her up for the beast once again. He was sensually kissing her neck, leaving hickey here and there, but he was always watching Anko. Anko didn't know why she was so willing to do these things. A month ago, the idea of sharing Naruto sent her into a fit that lasted for a month, yet now that he was here, sworn to claim her and love her in all forms, she was okay that he was lavishing another woman. That look in his eyes told her something that set her at ease. It told her that even though he would love others, he would always want to see her too. It set her heart at ease, and the thick musky smell that she had felt and smelled coming off of Naruto finally seemed to be able to do its job in making her animal side come out. Slowly, Anko bent over, showing Naruto not only her perfect ass but also her flexibility. She moved that beautiful ass from left to right as she slowly undid the latches on her ninja sandals before removing them. She slowly undid her flak jacket, making sure to stick out her chest for Naruto to see her large DD breasts and her hard nipples that were sticking out. Naruto was very impressed. The flak jacket had hidden much, but now Naruto was happy with the results and watched as Anko continued her striptease until she was down to her dark purple panties and bra. "Stop," spoke Naruto, seeing her about to start removing her bra. "That is my job," spoke Naruto as he made a "come here" motion with his hand. Anko seemed to understand that Naruto was in charge and started to walk towards him in the most sensual way. Her breast bounced with every step and her beautiful round butt swayed from side to side with each step before she got to Naruto and sat on his lap. Naruto was in heaven. On his left leg was Tsunami, whose large butt cheeks were wrapped around his left leg, as Naruto's left hand was now in her panties, loosening her up for later. He had removed his right hand from her because Anko had sat on his left leg, smothering each side of it with her perfect butt cheeks as his hand slid down into her panties. Instantly he had Anko moaning, but it wasn't enough. He moved her head a bit to look at him, but when she did, he latched onto her mouth with his and dominated her mouth with his own. Anko and Tsunami were not the only ones feeling the pleasure though. Tsunami had already unzipped Naruto's fly when she first sat on his leg and had been stroking the beast the entire time. Now Anko's nimble hands were in his pants as well, helping Tsunami stroke him off. It was large enough that both of them could jerk him off at the same time and wouldn't get in each other's way. Naruto was in heaven, but wanted to change things up. He removed his hand from within Tsunami's panties and gave one of her butt cheeks a nice slap. When Tsunami looked at him with confusion, Naruto nodded downwards and she got the message instantly. She smiled and got up off of Naruto's lap, only to get on her hands and knees and take the head of Naruto's cock into her mouth. Because of the excitement and the dual hand job, Naruto's dick was leaking pre-cum like a crazy bastard, though this only made Tsunami happier because she loved the taste of Naruto's cum and happily drank it. Anko wasn't one to be left out, and although Naruto had removed her bra, and not her panties yet, she wasn't about to let Tsunami be the only one who pleasured Naruto, so she too got on her hands and knees. She was shocked for a second by the size, but quickly got over it and did something Naruto hadn't been expecting. She started to lick his balls all over and would suck on them for a moment as well. Naruto leaned his head back and just smiled. This was great. Two women that he cared deeply for were sucking his cock and balls like pros and were not even arguing. Amazing. Soon though, Anko wanted to trade up and made a few deft motions that Tsunami soon got. Tsunami released Naruto's cock from her mouth and swallowed the pre-cum, savoring the taste before going back down and sucking on Naruto's big balls. Anko quickly took the head for herself and started to bobble her head back and forth while running her tongue on the bottom of his cock. Anko really hoped that Naruto liked this, seeing as she had no experience with such things beside hearing from other Kenichi, books and magazines, and practicing with her toy. The happy groans Naruto was making told Anko that she was doing a good job and decided that she wanted to try something that apparently all men loved, but was apparently somewhat difficult for the woman. Anko didn't care. She just wanted Naruto to be happy, and so she took a big gulp of air and shoved her head forward. Naruto's eyes widened, instantly feeling a mind-blowing feeling just shoot through his cock and up his body. When he looked down, he saw Anko with 7 inches of his cock down her throat. She looked to be straining a bit, but the look of the side of her throat that was swollen because it was housing Naruto's cock sent Naruto into overdrive. He grabbed Anko's hair and started face-fucking her like a madman. Anko was surprised that this wasn't as hard as she thought it would be. Yes, her face hurt a little big and she couldn't breathe, but so long as she had the air that she had swallowed earlier, then she would be okay for a while. She could actually feel her throat expanding to accommodate Naruto's giant cock and reshaping to his shape. It made her mind glaze over knowing that her throat would soon look like Naruto's cock. She was a bit shocked when Naruto grabbed her hair, not know what was going on. But when he pulled her hair towards him and thrusted his hips towards her mind went blank. She could feel her nose into Naruto's pubes, he large ball sack swing forward and hit her throat and chin all at the same time. And of course all the sensations of Naruto's 9.5-inch cock down her throat, but she never would have thought she would have felt so good. It was in that moment that Anko realized that she was a masochist, and that she liked being used and abused by her love Naruto. That animal in Naruto had already completely taken over. Anko's throat was amazing, no, it was perfect. Stretched to accommodate him, it was hot and slippery, and it was so tight. Naruto pulled his hips back and thrusted forward again, causing Anko to make a gurgled sound. But Naruto didn't pay it no mind. This sensation was too good, and he began to fuck her as fast and hard as he possible could. Anko was in a world of pain and pleasure. It felt great having Naruto fuck her like she was some kind of convenient cum dumb, but the stretching of her throat and jaw caused her a fair deal of pain. The pain only made her more excited. The pain was Anko's friend, and she was quickly getting off on it. Tsunami wasn't idle at all. She was making sure her master's new girl was nice and loose. She too had come to a realization. She had a master/slave fetish. She liked the idea of Naruto owning her and using her to do what he wanted when he wanted it, regardless if there were people around or not. So she continued to finger Anko's pussy, adding another finger when she would loosen up enough. Though with all the juices she was letting out, it didn't take long. Naruto continued to pound Anko's face like a madman. The feeling made him lose his mind, and the feeling of her nose in his pubes and her lips kissing around the base of his cock was just too much, and soon he felt a familiar sensation. "Shit, I am coming. Anko, you had better swallow it all," shouted Naruto as he slammed his cock back inside of Anko's mouth, making sure he was fully inserted inside of her throat before he let out a bucket full of cum. Anko's mind was in shock from the pleasure-pain combo that she was feeling. Her jaw and throat were sore as a motherfucker, and her lungs were burning from lack of oxygen, and yet it turned her on, as did the taste of Naruto's cock, the texture against her mouth. And it seemed that the pheromones that made them all so crazy horny were actually originating from Naruto's cock, causing Anko to be nothing more than a sex object for Naruto's use. Anko didn't hear Naruto shout out he was coming, but somehow she knew. The twitching in his monster cock and the speed up in thrusting was more than enough to tell her that what others had explained to her was coming. She hadn't been expecting so much cum to flow into her stomach. It was like he was pissing like a fire hose straight into her stomach with thick hot water. Her stomach quickly filled up, causing her stomach to swell up visibly from the outside. Feeling Naruto unload into her stomach caused Anko to have a mind-numbing orgasm of her own. When Naruto was done coming, he slowly pulled out of Anko's throat and fell into his seat while Anko fell onto the rug. Naruto did not. That Tsunami looked sad when she rolled Anko on her back and opened her mouth to look inside. "Don't worry, my cute slave girl, you will get your fill soon as well," spoke Naruto in a deep, commanding voice. Tsunami had already explained her fetish to him, so he knew she would be more than happy with what was to come. It seemed Anko would need some time to recover before he started on her. Tsunami smiled brightly right before Naruto pushed her on the ground. "I am your master and you will do as I say. You're my little toy," spoke Naruto as he reached down and grabbed Tsunami by the arm and threw her on his bed. Ass stuck up into the air. Tsunami loved it. She loved being ordered around, she loved to be used, and she just loved Naruto way too much. "Stick that ass out for your master," spoke Naruto in a commanding voice as he smacked her ass, causing it to giggle. "Yes, my lord," spoke Tsunami as she raised her ass up, but kept her face on the bed. A lady was allowed to look her lord in the face as they had sex. A concubine was allowed to look back every so often, but a sex slave wasn't even allowed to do that. Naruto looked down at Tsunami. Her knees were in the bed, raising straight up to her pussy and ass, but her back was curved from how low she had put herself. Naruto suspected she may be a masochist as well, but shook his head. He didn't care really. It was for the better in his opinion. Naruto whipped out his dick and pushed it into Tsunami-soaked folds. She let out a sultry moan as she could feel her lord's giant cock splitting her in half. No matter how many times they did it, she always felt like it was the first time, but now Naruto would push it in even fast so he could get to her cervix. It seemed to have become a challenge to him. It seemed like he wanted to dominate her cervix, so when he stuck it in, it knew to get out of his way. She smiled, realizing that Naruto was showing her cervix that it was his cock's slave. Naruto continued to fuck Tsunami again and again, causing her body to lurch forward, but the powerful grip he had on her hips prevented her from going anywhere. Her dirty moans were like music to his ears, causing him to pound her womanhood faster and harder. Eventually, he was able to beat her cervix down and fuck her womb. It was an amazing sensation, to be sure, but what got him off even more was actually watching as his cock could be visibly seen when it would bang her womb from her stomach. "Oh God, I am coming," shouted Naruto as he filled Tsunami's womb up with his cum and watched as it flooded out of her womb and dripped down her legs and into a large puddle. Tsunami passed out instantly with a bliss-filled face. She hadn't been able to survive more than one climax from her master yet, but she hoped someday she could satisfy him even more. Naruto pulled out of Tsunami and smiled at his work. Her pussy was shaking and leaking cum all at once, and her face was stuck in that eternal bliss look. Naruto put his cock at the base of her butt and flexed a bit, causing some cum to come out. He watched as it ran down her back and fell off the side and onto one of her breasts. "Ah, that felt great," spoke Naruto. But then he felt someone pulling on his pants leg. He looked down and saw Anko on her back with her legs spread wide open just for him. She didn't say anything, but Naruto figured that it was because her throat might be a little too sore for something like that. He noticed that there was a weird Kinjutsu symbol right above her pussy and a small bit of purple fluff about that. Naruto smiled, knowing that Tsunami had already loosened her up and got on his own hands and knees. He slowly positioned his cock at her entrance and began to push deep inside of her. When he felt something rip along the way, he looked up and saw a lone tear leave one of Anko's eyes. "You were a virgin?" asked Naruto. Anko nodded her head and smiled a bit. "Why didn't you tell me? I would have been gentler," spoke Naruto. Anko pointed to herself, then made a heart sign with her hands, then pointed at Naruto, and then spread her arms. The message was clear. Anko loved Naruto more than anything. Naruto nodded his head, leaned forward and kissed Anko on the lips, then whispered, "And I you," before leaning back up and slowly pushing forward. Once Anko had recovered, Naruto went to town. He pounded Anko as hard and fast as he could, and quickly spread her walls to accommodate his large member. It seemed that Anko spread easier than Tsunami did, making Naruto laugh at a small joke in his about snakes. Naruto pounded Anko hard and watched with amazement as his cock went in and out of Anko's pussy. He could actually see where his cock was by the bulge in her lower region. Naruto also watched as Anko's breast jiggled and bounced up and down, slapping her in the face again and again, though she didn't seem to notice. Her pussy would tighten every so often, telling Naruto that Anko was coming again, but he never slowed down. The glazed look in Anko's eyes and the way her tongue was hanging out like a dog told Naruto that she didn't mind at all. Soon Naruto ran into Anko's cervix, but he ignored it. He was in a trance and quickly smashed through it, feeling her pussy tighten again. Naruto felt Anko's womb actually latch onto his cock and slide up and down on the head like it was trying to force him to come as soon as possible. "Fuck her, I come," shouted Naruto as he trusted into her once again, fully sheathing his rod inside of her. Anko's face was contorted into something no pleasure had ever caused a woman to feel, and her body spammed a bit as Naruto's cum filled her womb and then raced out of her because there wasn't enough room. When Naruto pulled out, Anko had already passed out. Naruto smiled at his work, and soon all three of them were in his bed with smiles on their faces. Naruto's Earth Grudge Fear Chapter 6. Inside of the Hokage's tower was the Hokage with a squad of his most dedicated ANBU ninja. The news that they had just brought him was daunting indeed, but it wasn't something that hadn't happened before, unfortunately. But it was the person in which was involved with that was the problem, a very big problem actually. The ANBU had told the Hokage that they had recently noticed odd activity near the northern border, but that they also noticed some odd activities within the wall. The Hokage had been worried, in fact, that the person in question might have been a spy trying to relay information to a possibly army ready to invade them, but the question left was what that person's involvement was. The Hokage hated traitors with a passion. They willing threw away the trust the people had in them just go gain whatever petty material good it was that they wanted. Those types of people left countless dead in their pursuit of their own pleasures, and left the rest to suffer without a care in the world. Those people traded in their honor, pride, and loyalty to satisfy their own selves, which was something that Hiruzen could not accept. The question though was how he was going to oust this possible traitor or spy. He could always have said person captured and interrogated, but he didn't like that type of dealing. He didn't like arresting people and then interrogating them without proper evidence. They could just as well be innocent and were possibly just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was also the possibility that the spy or traitor would be able to fool their interrogator, though unlikely, and then be released only to become aware that they were in fact being investigated, which would cause them to flee and Konoha to lose whatever information that the assailant had. What the Hokage needed was a shinobi who could watch this person without drawing suspicion to himself, yet was skilled enough to kill or capture the traitor should the time come. There were many skilled shinobi inside of Konoha whose skills varied from assassination, espionage, spying, to anything else that he would need, and yet the Hokage felt another who was making a name for himself rather quickly was the perfect man for the job. "Rat!" shouted the Hokage right before an ANBU ninja appeared before him. The man was one of his best, as well as his most trusted ANBU ninja. The Hokage knew that he could trust this man with this important mission. "You called Hokage-sama?" asked the man as he bowed before the Hokage. This was serious, and he knew that it was to be expected. The Hokage had to be a real military leader when the children were not around, or else the village would fall apart. "I want you to bring this to its designated location, and leave right after," spoke the Hokage with a serious look on his face. But soon it changed to a small smile. It was a devious smile, like he knew something that nobody else did. "Yes, Hokage-sama," spoke Rat right before he jumped up and disappeared into the shadows. The Hokage loved how competent his elite ninja were, but he knew that the academy was becoming lax, so he would have to start cracking the whip on them. He was really tired, but he would give his all for his village. "May I have a word, Hokage-sama? Some new information has come to our attention that we believe you should be made aware of," spoke a voice from the shadows. The Hokage nodded his head right before another man came from the shadows. This man had on the same outfit as the first, but instead of a rat mask, he had a hawk mask. "What new informations have you brought to my attention, Hawk?" asked the Hokage, looking down at his subordinate. This man was also one of Hiruzen's personal elite ninja, and was highly trained, even if he did have an unpleasant past. "We were in the land of lighting when we ran into a group of Kumo ninja. There was a large battle, but that wasn't what was important. When we were going through the Kumo ninjas things, we found this," spoke the hawk-masked ANBU ninja as he pulled out a small hand-sized black book. He placed it on the Hokage's desk and then took a step back. "It is on page 54, spoke the man. The Hokage raised an eyebrow, but didn't question the man. He picked up the little black book and realized it was a new edition of the bingo book from Kumogakure. The Hokage wondered who was put in it, but when he flipped over to page 54, he nearly dropped the bingo book. "What the hell is this?" spoke the Hokage as he continued to read the little black book. He couldn't believe that Kumo had done this, but now that he thought about it, the spy may have known about the other Kumo ninja that Naruto had killed and relayed the information to Kumo, though the Hokage couldn't be sure. "We were surprised as well, and came back to Konoha as quickly as we possibly could. The fact that a clan head was placed into the Bing book isn't that surprising, but one as young as him is very shocking. He is also the future of his clan, so will need to be protected at all times, or else Kumo will have him taken out," spoke Hawk with a serious tone in his voice. He knew how the Hokage felt about the boy and the boy's attitude, but the boy had to be protected regardless of personal feelings. Even the potential loss of any clan was a major threat to any village, regardless of the clan's position in said village. The Hokage barely heard what Hawk was saying. All he could think about was what was inside of the little black book he was reading. Right there, in black and white, was the name Naruto Uzumaki for the entire world to see. Name: Naruto Uzumaki. Aliases: Naruto of the Scorch Style / Demon Killer / Future of the Uzumaki Clan / Last Uzumaki / Hero of the Land of Waves. Clan: Uzumaki Clan. Traits: Advanced Regeneration, Uzumaki trait, believed to have high chakra reserves, Uzumaki trait, believed to have Uzumaki type sensor, Uzumaki trait, believed to have powerful chakra, Uzumaki trait, believed to have powerful life force, Uzumaki trait, believed to have abundant amount of life force, Uzumaki trait, believed to have skills. Fuinjutsu. Unknown, Uzumaki were known as masters of this art. Barrier ninjutsu. Unknown, Uzumaki were known for their skills in this area. Medical ninjutsu. Unknown. Taijutsu, strong user. Kinjutsu. Very skilled, rumors state he was able to kill the demon of the mist in a sword fight. Genjutsu, unknown. Ninjutsu. Very skilled, has mastered at least 2 affinities, and can at least use an elemental bloodline limit. Affinities: Wind release, Fire release, Bloodlines, Scorch release. Family: Kushina Uzumaki, believed to be his mother. Father unknown. Bound: $2,500,000. Wanted by Kumogakure. Information: Naruto Uzumaki was known as a prodigy inside of the academy, and was quickly able to impress his teachers with his advanced learning capabilities. His skills are said to be so great that he was actually able to convince the Hokage to allow him the ability to take up his clan head title at a young age, and is believed to be working towards restarting the Uzumaki clan inside of Konohagakure. It is unknown, but rumors have it that Naruto was not born with the Scorch release bloodline limit, but somehow was able to gain it for himself. Whether Naruto has someone found a way to steal bloodlines or not, the boy is known to have obtained some kind of unique power, but what it is not known. 3 months ago, rumors started to emerge about a team from Konoha that was sent to the Land of Waves to free them from oppression, but were met by Zabuza Momochi, a highly skilled nuke ninja from Kirigakure. It is believed that not only did Naruto defeat the Demon of the Mist on his own, he is also believed to have defeated Zabuza's apprentice as well. What is known about Naruto Uzumaki is limited, but what is known is that he is a future threat that should be removed as soon as possible. He is to be either killed or captured for interrogation within Kumogakure. The Hokage let out an audible sigh as he put down the Kumo Bingo book and looked out the window. The sun was just coming up and the day was just beginning, but it already was turning out to be a headache. I am going to need more tobacco, thought the Hokage as he picked up his pipe and inhaled the numbing sensation that the smoke gave him. When he let it back out, he looked over at Hawk and thought for a minute. Once he was done, he put down his pipe and handed Hawk the Kumo Bingo book. What should we do, Lord Hokage? Spoke Hawk as he took the bingo book and slipped it back into his ANBU jacket. He didn't make any sounds, but the Hokage knew he was tense, His moments were not as fluid as they usually were. We will need to inform Naruto about this, but not until after his mission. He doesn't need any distractions while he is working, spoke the Hokage as his old mind started to go through different options that were open to them. He knew that this could lead to war with the Hidden Cloud Village, but he didn't want that. The Hidden Cloud Village was the closest village in terms of power to them, and it was possible that if they went to war that they would destroy one another, and that would only leave them both vulnerable to attack by Tsunegakure, Iwagakure, and Kirigakure. The Hokage was sure that Kiri already had enough of its own problems. Suna was their allies, but IWA hated their guts. They would take any chance they could get to attack them, so if they brought in Suna to help them, then it was more than likely that Kumo would bring IWA to their side. That was a war that would leave the lands completely destroyed. What about protection? The boy will no doubt be attacked by bounty hunters, enemy ninja, and other threats to get a bounty that large for just killing one kid, spoke Hawk with a voice that bellowed his disbelief. He couldn't understand why the Hokage was letting someone as important as Naruto fend for himself when he meant so much to the village's future. There is no way Naruto would ever agree to something like protection from anyone. He would rather die and take his entire clan down with him than embarrass his ancestors by hiding behind others, spoke the Hokage with a slightly annoyed voice. But the smile on his face said he was anything but angry. The boy is strong, and he should be able to survive most attacks, though I doubt there are many who would be able to get close to Naruto while he is in the village that is strong enough to kill him, and when he is out of the village he has a very powerful Jonin-sensei with him, not including anyone else who is on a mission with them, spoke the Hokage thinking about something that had been on his mind for 3 months now. Naruto had greatly surprised him when he brought back Haku Yuki to the Hidden Leaf Village. He had assumed the Yuki clan had gone extinct like the Kagaya clan because of the Mizuki's bloodline purgings, but it seemed he had been wrong. Haku Yuki was a good boy, though he looked pretty girly in well everyone's case really, but once he took of the female-looking outfit and pulled his hair back a bit, he actually looked like a guy. He was relieved because it would be hard to restart the Yuki clan when everyone thought the only member, who was a man, looked like a woman. The Hokage had to agree with Naruto when he said that it probably wouldn't be wise to announce that Haku was in Konoha, and the Yuki clan was going to be restarted in Konoha. It would probably end up with a war with Kiri, and other assassins would come after him as well. Judging by the bingo book he got from Kumo, these thoughts were correct. They had all agreed that Haku should stay in the Uzumaki compound until his mind could be looked through by a Yamanaka, though Haku said he would like to live with Naruto anyways. So after he was thoroughly examined he was still allowed to stay with Naruto. Naruto had quickly become his best friend, and even though he had killed Zabuza, Haku knew it was for the betterment of everyone, even if it did break his heart a bit. Naruto had surprised everyone when he announced that Tazuna, the bridge builder in the Land of Wave, had agreed to come to Konoha and build Haku's future clan home, when he was done fixing the Land of Wave of course. It would take a few years, but Naruto was sure that Haku would love it, and he was sure in the meantime they would be able to come up with some kind of agreement between them making an alliance between their clans. Maybe Hokage doing that alone isn't the wisest idea, especially after seeing this. Maybe I should do that. I am sure Naruto wouldn't mind after all, thought the Hokage as he looked over at Hawk who he knew didn't agree with him. But he wouldn't say anything. Ninja knew that the Hokage was in charge and to not challenge him, plus they were smart. He was the longest running Hokage ever, and had worlds more experience and knowledge than any of them. Yes, Hokage-sama, spoke Hawk right before he melded away with the shadows. He would follow the Hokage to the end of the world if it meant protecting the Hidden Leaf Village. The Hokage was known as a genius amongst geniuses with a lifetime of experience, so his choices were probably the right one. Uzumaki clan compound. Naruto slowly woke up feeling the bust of 2 beautiful women caused a smile to form on his face. When Naruto opened up his eyes, he saw the short purple hair of Anko's hair on his head, and the silky smooth black hair with a blue tint flowing down the other side of his chest. Tsunami was sleeping nuzzled up in the crook of Naruto's neck while Anko was sleeping on his chest while slowly rubbing her cheek on his impressive muscles. She really was his bad girl, while Tsunami was his good little housewife girl. He had the best of both worlds, and he was loving every minute of it. Naruto would have loved to continue like that for the rest of the day, but the sensory barrier that was placed in front of the shielding barrier had been set off, though the particular signature was flickering in the exact manner in which the Hokage had made for the ANBU to inform Naruto of their presence. Naruto sighed, knowing that an ANBU ninja wouldn't come to his house without being on some important mission for the Hokage, which meant he was obligated to go see what it was. Using a shadow clone, Naruto was able to switch places with it so that he could go see what the ANBU wanted. As Naruto walked through his compound, he smelt something nice starting to float through the air, and when he passed through the kitchen he saw Haku standing there making a nice, but simple, breakfast for everyone. Usually Tsunami did that, but Haku felt like he was just mooching off of them, even though Naruto told him that he didn't see it that way, so Haku would do something every day like clean the living room, make breakfast, or something else. Naruto saw the table that Haku had put all of the food on and started to get hungry. There was everything a guy like he would love, such as grits, bacon, eggs, biscuits, toast, orange juice, milk, salt, and pepper. "It is looking good," spoke Naruto as he stole a biscuit from off the table and took a bite out of it. It was good, and Naruto could tell that Haku had made it from scratch, which made it even better. "Oh, good morning, Naruto-san. I hope you're having a good day," spoke Haku as he looked over at Naruto with a smile on his face. He had become really close friends with Naruto these past 3 months, though he was happy to mess with him all he wanted. Naruto's eyebrow twitched a bit when he heard that. "Haku, I told you not to call me Naruto-san anymore. We are friends, so call me Naruto," spoke Naruto with a sickly sweet smile on his face that only made Haku chuckle nervously. "Alright Naruto, no need to get violent," spoke Haku as he raised his hands in surrender. "Anyways, don't you have a guest? Wouldn't it be rude to make him wait any longer?" spoke Haku as he motioned towards the window at the end of the living room. When Naruto turned his head, he saw a hawk-masked ANBU standing right outside his clan's compound. Naruto looked over at Haku, giving him the "you're lucky" look before walking to the entrance of the Uzumaki clan and opening up the front door. Haku let out a sigh of relief as he whipped the sweat from his brow. He knew Naruto was only kidding about that look, but it still didn't mean it still wasn't scary. Hawk watched as Naruto walked out of his clan's compound and walked up to the gate that was at the border of the defensive barrier that was set around the Uzumaki clan compound. The boy had obviously just woken up. His hair was all messy, but his skill was still perfect and his eyes were clear. Obviously he was a true Uzumaki. He was wearing a new outfit that he had recently gotten. Though Hawk assumed it was because of Naruto's new girlfriends, the boy was so whipped. There was no other way to describe it, though if he was getting some from 2 beautiful women at the same time every night he would be too. Naruto's outfit was more revealing than his last one had been. Hawk assumed it had something to do with the new hidden technique that Naruto had discovered that he later made his clan's official clan technique. Hawk had always wondered what Naruto's secret technique was, but knew it was being kept a secret between the Hokage and Naruto until Naruto was strong enough to defend himself against nearly everyone, or until he had an heir. Naruto wore a light gray, loose-fitting, long-sleeved, zip-up shirt, black pants cut off around mid-calf, bandages wrapped around his ankles, traditional shinobi sandals, and a red, rope-like belt tied around his waist like the ones worn by Kumo ninja. Ironic, really. Naruto's forehead protector was loosely tied around his neck, though when Hawk looked closely, he saw 2 black rings right above each of Naruto's wrists. He hadn't known that Naruto had gotten a tattoo. Naruto saw the Hawk ANBU, but oddly the man wasn't moving. Naruto narrowed his eyes expecting a trap, but then it seemed the man snapped out of his daydream and handed Naruto a thick scroll around a foot long. "Hokage-sama wishes for you to undergo a secret mission for the village hidden in the leaves. He expects nothing short of perfection from you, Uzumaki Dano," spoke the hawk-masked ANBU right before he disappeared like he had never been there. Naruto thought the man was a little too vague, but the Hokage's orders were what was important, not some ANBU's weird quirks. Naruto walked back inside of his clan's compound and entered a living room that was close to the kitchen. The room was nice enough in Naruto's opinion as it had 2 large couches, an armchair, and a coffee table in the center, with windows in the back, and random pictures of plants and bodies of water on the wall. Let's see what the Hokage wants me to do," thought Naruto, as he unrolled a scroll that the Hokage had written to him. Naruto instantly recognized the Hokage's handwriting, and the Hokage's seal was authentic as well. Well, isn't this interesting, spoke Naruto with a dark grin on his face. Oh, Naruto was going to enjoy this mission more than any other mission he had ever been on. He was going to be to make this traitor suffer greatly for threatening his village. 2 weeks later. Anko was not happy, not in the least. Naruto had been gone most of the days and nights for the past 2 weeks and wouldn't tell her or Tsunami what he was doing. It made Anko so mad that she would bring it out on whoever it was she was interrogating in the TNI building, which made those who were being interrogated unending amounts of misery. She had been talking to Tsunami and Haku, and found out that Naruto had met up with a member of the ANBU Black Ops, which had surprised her. She had assumed that Naruto was talking with them about joining the prestigious organization so that he could get stronger, but the more time that went by, the more she started to suspect it was something else. Tsunami was sweet, but she wasn't a ninja, therefore she wasn't very helpful with the information gathering bit, but she was around Naruto a lot, even more than her, which kind of pissed her off, but she did realize that Naruto didn't have as much work as she did and therefore he would be able to go home to where Tsunami was. Anko had done some investigation of her own and found out that Naruto wasn't even training with his sensei. Apparently Naruto had asked Yamato to train Haku so that he could perfect his water-style ninjutsu, and then later Naruto himself would teach Haku how to use wind release. Apparently elemental bloodlines could be strengthened if the wielder gained more control over the two elements that made up the sub-element that they used, making it more powerful, less chakra taxing, and easier to use. To Anko's dismay, they said that they didn't even know where Naruto had been going to almost all day long. Anko was reaching the ends of her patience and was getting ready for a major beatdown. That night, inside of the Hokage's office was dark with only a single ember burning at the end of the Hokage's pipe creating light, other than that which the moon created that loomed into the room like a large ominous meteorite in the sky. "Is the Operation Clean Sweep a go?" asked the Hokage as he looked down at the man before him. This man had done a perfect job, keeping to all of the ancient codes of the shinobi and following his mission to the T. "Yes, Hokage-sama. I must say that I am looking forward to this," spoke the masked ninja, though the Hokage knew that he had a smile on his face behind that mask. The Hokage had to admit he was looking forward to this as well. It wasn't every day you get to oust a traitor and have the evidence to back it up. It was liberating to do some real shinobi work instead of just paperwork. "Then, as the third Hokage, I order you to see to it your duties as a shinobi are carried out," spoke the Hokage with a firm tone to his voice that echoed all throughout the office. "As you wish, Hokage-sama," spoke the ninja before he disappeared in a burst of flames, leaving nothing behind that could be used to tell that he had even been there. Anko had not been happy, but she was nothing if not one for revenge. She loved the thrill of the hunt. Though she was in the TNI division, she had always wanted to be a tracker ninja, but the opportunity just hadn't come up. What she did was too valuable to the Hidden Leaf Village since all of the newer ninja had such squeamish stomachs and avoided her job like the plague. She just found them to all be a bunch of pussies. To her, they were not real men. Only Naruto could truly claim that in her eyes. But that didn't mean he wasn't going to be punished for leaving her and Tsunami all alone for the past 2 weeks. In the forest north of Konoha was a man with silver hair that reached down to his lower neck with a giant scroll on his back along with 2 Fuma shuriken. He wore a maddening grin on his face as he ran away from the village, hidden in the leaves, thinking that he would finally get all of the power that he had been denied back in Konoha. "With the forbidden scroll, I will finally be able to become the ninja I was always destined to be," shouted the man, throwing caution to the wind. "With the power this scroll will give me, I could become the lord of my own nation, or maybe I could even start up my own empire. Not even the first Hokage's power will be able to compare to mine," laughed the man like he had just heard the funniest joke of his entire life. And if anyone else had heard what he had said about becoming more powerful than the first Hokage, then they would be laughing as well. The man continued to jump through the trees, getting further and further away from Konoha. Had planned this out well. He knew that it was going to rain tonight, and once it did, all of his tracks would be washed away, and he would be far enough away that the Hyuga wouldn't be able to find him with that pesky dojutsu of theirs. "This is all too easy. It is like..." But then the man was cut off by a new voice that was dripping with something that he couldn't place, but whatever it was caused him to freeze up. Like it had been a setup, spoke a man as he came out of the shadows. He wore a fox mask that jutted out around the mouth area, giving it more dimensions. The mask had 3 red stripes on the side and red rings around the eyes. "Who the hell are you?" demanded the silver-haired man as he grabbed one of the Fuma shuriken that had been on his back and held it tightly ready to strike. "Why, Mizuki-sensei, I can't believe you forgot one of your precious students already," spoke the masked man with heavy sarcasm in his voice. "What are you talking about? I never taught whoever you are," spoke Mizuki, thinking that it was a trick, something like psychological warfare, though he couldn't see what this man's point was. Maybe it would help if I took my mask off," spoke the masked man as he reached up and grabbed hold of his mask. When he removed it, he heard Mizuki gasp when he saw the golden blonde hair the boy had, and the sadistic blue eyes that shone with glee. "Naruto, what the hell are you doing here?" demanded Mizuki, thinking that this was some kind of joke. "I am here to kill you, of course. Then I will take the forbidden scroll back to the Hokage, and then I will go home to my beautiful wives and unleash all of this pent-up tension with them in some very carnal activities," spoke Naruto with what almost sounded like a purr at the end. "Naruto, you have gotten ahead of yourself. You let the villagers and the Hokage talk you up so much that you actually think you can take a Chunin," spoke Mizuki with a laugh that sounded wrong on so many levels. "Even if I couldn't, the beautiful angel that followed me out here would be way more than capable of killing you. Though watching you blood spill as she slices you in half would be very interesting," spoke Naruto with a grin that seemed to make Mizuki falter. "Oh yeah, and who is this angel you sound so fond of?" demanded Mizuki, ready for anything. But when Anko came out of the shadows, his blood ran cold. He was scared of her sadistic nature like no one's business, like many men in the village. Anko had followed Naruto through the forest thinking that he was up to something that she would have to stop. She would of course try and convince him to reconsider what he was doing, but she truly prayed that whatever it was legal. When he stopped and looked up, she thought he had noticed her, but when she followed his line of sight, she noticed he was looking at Mizuki, and he had something on his back that resembled a large scroll. She got closer to try and figure out what was going on. When they started talking, Anko was shocked that the Hokage had given Naruto a mission to oust a traitor, but his pride skyrocketed when she found out about it, and of course when he started to talk about spilling his blood in such a sadistic manner. Her favorite part, though, was obviously the part about her being his angel. In that one sentence, all the anger, though not the sexual tension, had separated instantly. "What are you doing here, Anko?" demanded Mizuki as he pulled back on his Fuma shuriken. "What, are you deaf? I am here to help my husband kill you," spoke Anko with a sadistic grin on her face as she pulled out a kunai and licked it in a sensual, in Naruto's opinion, but creepy in Mizuki's opinion, way. "I am tired of this. Just die," shouted Mizuki as he threw the Fuma shuriken with great force towards Naruto and Anko. Anko got out the jutsu's path, but Naruto just stood his ground. Anko went to say something, but she then saw that Naruto had closed his hands and had a grin on his face. She trusted him, and knew that he wouldn't do anything too incredibly stupid, so she waited to see what would happen. "Wind style, Gale Palm Jutsu," shouted Naruto as he shoved both of his hands forward, creating a powerful gust of wind that caught the Fuma shuriken jutsu in the air, and then blasted it off into the forest. "Is that all you can do, sensei?" asked Naruto with a big grin on his face as he looked at Mizuki with predatory eyes. "Shut up. All you are is a little brat who just got lucky. You're nothing more than a snot-nosed brat who just got out of the academy and thinks he is something special," shouted Mizuki as he went to grab another one of his Fuma shuriken. But when he tried to grab it, a giant purple snake wrapped around him. "What the hell is going on?" spoke Mizuki, looking straight in the eyes of the giant purple snake. "Oh, did you already forget about little old me?" spoke Anko as she walked over to Mizuki's side. The snake looked over at her and nodded his head a bit before looking back at Mizuki with expecting eyes. "You witch!" shouted Mizuki, starting to feel fear spreading all throughout his body. "Oh, such a foul mouth you have there, little Chunin. I think seeing the mouth of a giant snake will fix that," spoke Anko as she pulled out a kunai and held it up to Mizuki's throat. "Oh no, I have a much better idea than that," spoke Naruto as he walked up to the other side of Mizuki and raised his right hand. Soon black hairs started to come out of every pore in his arm and started to travel towards Mizuki. "What the hell are you doing?" demanded Mizuki, trying to get away, fear rushing through his body like wildfire. He wanted to get away. He regretted everything that he did, but a little voice in the back of his head told him that it didn't matter anymore. I read in your files that the Hokage gave me that said you have an earth release affinity, an affinity I don't have, and with my body size I can handle up to 4 hearts at once, depending on the heart size. Since I have my own heart and 2 grown adult hearts inside of my body, this is going to cause a tight fit, but no pain no gain as they say. I have my original wind release heart that I was born with, the scorch release heart that I got from that Kumo ninja that I killed, the water release heart that I got from Zabuza Momochi, and now I have an earth release heart that I am going to rip out of you while you are still alive, spoke Naruto, and for a brief moment his eyes flashed red and his pupils turned to slits. The hairs started to travel towards Mizuki faster and soon they entered his body. After that I will have an affinity for all 5 elements and a sub-element. Aren't you happy for your student Mizuki-sensei? Spoke Naruto with sarcasm in his voice. Please, don't do this to me, shouted Mizuki, feeling the pain of thousands of hair like needles rushing through his chest and constricting around his heart. Anko was truly fascinated by what she was seeing and felt a rush unlike any she had ever felt before. Sorry, but I don't feel sympathy for traitors, spoke Naruto, and with a small tug the hairs ripped Mizuki's heart right out of his chest. It was still pumping and the black hairs were already pierced into it, tapping into the chakra network of the heart and was keeping it going. Anko watched with fascination as Naruto opened up his shirt and let it all around his sides while still being attached to him via the red rope-like belt that he wore. Now Anko realized why he had changed his outfit so much. It was to allow him to use his clan's ability easier. Naruto manipulated the black threads inside of his body to slowly make an incision on the right-hand side of his chest before using them to open up the wound large enough for the heart to be placed inside. When everything was all said and done, there was a small line over his chest that was sewn up by black threads. Anko knew the wound wouldn't be there tomorrow. No wounds ever stayed for long on Naruto. His Uzumaki healing truly was remarkable. Naruto enjoyed the feeling of power rushing through his body. Although Mizuki had been weak, that didn't mean his affinity had been weak as well. The chakra that the heart produced was pretty good, and now Naruto had an earth release affinity, so now he would be able to learn and master earth release as well. There was one thing that did haunt him at night. The scroll said that so long as you continued to gather hearts before all of the ones you had worn out, you could in theory live forever. Naruto didn't mind living 150 years as that was natural for an Uzumaki, but eternity was such an overwhelming thing, and he knew that he couldn't live on forever without his loved ones, so with that in mind he would possibly have to choose when he died. It was haunting, but with the people in his life he was able to ignore it for now. That was amazing, spoke Anko, not even beginning to conceive the brutality of what she had seen. Oh, thank you, Anko Uzumaki, spoke Naruto with a purr in his voice, as he walked over to Anko and pulled her into a deep kiss that caused he to start moaning instantly. I think it is about time we make up for these last 2 weeks we were not able to express ourselves, spoke Naruto as he pulled Anko into another heated kiss. Anko didn't mind at all, and knew that they wouldn't even make it back to the compound. It was going to be an outdoors love-making this time. A shadow clone was formed and took the scroll back to the Hokage before debriefing the mission to the Hokage. The Hokage was proud of Naruto, the clone was happy at the praise, and Naruto and Anko were just happy to make crazy love outdoors after 2 long weeks of no.